Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Overwatch Carbon series, where the only thing that is constant is grilled cheese and the fact that we're always going to get surprised from week to week. Gilfrost here with Hex and ZP. And boy, it's been a nice day today. I hate to rain on maybe other areas of the country's parades, but it was 75 today here in Denver.
Yeah, and I still brought my jacket because it might be snowing when we leave. That's how Denver works.
Denver really can't make up its mind, although I will say people in the Northeast are probably looking at that and going, why, as they shove themselves out of quite a bit of snow.
Yeah, I just wanted to make as many enemies as possible by saying that. That's why I wanted to lead the stream with that. So follow me on Twitter. Go ahead and you can haze me there if you'd like. I'm at Gilfrost. Just all of the hate mail goes right to my direct mail inbox. No, but before we get into this week, let's take a look at some stuff that happened yesterday. We had 3 very interesting matches. Here's some info from them.
This time, he's very, very up.
Jake on the miracle flank, though, trying to bring it back. This could be a throw.
Why are you doing this? They can still get on the point. I mean, maybe it works out, but this is such a risk. They already lose heat, and here comes Jake, 3 HP. Will he get it? He does! Ube, finishing Dragon Blade to the back, has 1, picks up 2. Super getting played there by Fluke, and here comes Dragon Blade by Jake, trying to pull it back and takes down 2. So it's a swift strike by Jake with 3. And that is quite the Dragon Blade to pull things around, and no. Are they gonna do it? Super with a bit of cleanup. The payload almost to the end. LG Evil. It was just the right amount of stalling in there for the Graviton, and Complexity might have thrown this one away. Trying to pull this back here, does pick up 2, but ready for this next fight. Oh! By the sound barrier, but the rest of the fight certainly going well, but the res comes in. Great position to finish this out. 3 kills to 0 here. Goodbye, the boop! Overtime ending, and Team Liquid, there will be no historic upset.
Juvenile, very hit or miss in his Earth Shatters, trying to set one up.
Well, he's looking for the shot, and it's a big hit. It's a home run, in fact. 5 people knocked down, gets the charge on the Ana. Graviton comes in from Renegades, but is poorly thought out. I think it was trying to protect Megachu, and a counter Earth Shatter by Nomi. Yikes.
No, Grim alone up top. I don't know how many times you have to say it. I believe I promised I was going to get a tattoo of saying you can't leave Grim alone on the high ground. Agilities goes in for the hook, does end up grabbing Juvenile there. This is cart time, but look at this. They have 2 minutes to push, not even in overtime.
Oh my God, Agilities, please. They have families.
Not anymore.
Not
they
me, though.
Here comes a grab, whole hog into it. With a lot of damage. They have
the Earth Shatter falling through. Juvenile
just zoning him out.
Classy. You know, stays with it, but hyped. Fireworks in over the top, takes down 2.
Attack visor coming in from Grim.
Oh, he's getting poked down. It's not going to be enough. Renegades now on the payload. They do it.
Some amazing matches. We did see LGE and RNG do what we expected them to do in finding victory. While LGL, they did bring it to a best of 5, 2-3 in that score. But the real big surprise from yesterday was Team Liquid 3-0ing Complexity. Not what we expected, but these have been 2 teams that have been a little inconsistent.
Complexity, it doesn't surprise me whenever they lose like that because we've always said that they're a model of inconsistency. They had been showing better results lately, but it's not enough to say that they've righted the ship wholly and are not capable of losing matches like that. So they remain... Complexity's logo, in my opinion, should just be changed to a question mark. That's how they've always been to me.
But to comment on that a little bit further, I do think it was a bit of a surprise because even though Complexity and Team Liquid have both very clearly been going through rebuilding over the course of the OCS, Complexity's had very solid contribution from their core 4, and it's let them give themselves a shot of still making the playoffs. And yet, I would say the biggest thing that came out is that I think their core 4 definitely had trouble yesterday, more so than anything else. And conversely, Team Liquid has been slowly leveling up over the course of things. And AZK in particular had a monster game that let them really put it over the top.
And honestly, with a week and full of playoff implications, I'd like to say that things have solidified from yesterday and Monday's matches. And while to a certain extent, maybe the top end is looking a little bit more solid, the bottom end is looking almost as shaky as ever, especially with Liquid finding victory. And these teams are going to have to find something to cling to if going into week 5 and even going into today's matches, they're going to have hope to get into the playoffs. Well, we've got 2 matches coming up today, but before we get into those, let's take a look at the standings as we're going to want to know where these teams stand for playoffs. So LG Evil and Renegades have both secured their spots in the playoffs. And in fact, LG Evil, they're guaranteed that top slot, even if Renegades was able to pick up. Actually, no, I lied. If LG Evil loses 2, because Renegades does play today, technically they could tie, but the head-to-head would be where that comes down to. But the bottom half, this is where we're looking at some question marks, because underneath Renegades, everyone has a losing record. Immortals at 3-4, tied with Complexity at 3-4. Team Liquid with their victory yesterday, able to bring it up to 2-6. And then, of course, LG Loyal rounding out that bottom here at 1-6. They're looking to find a victory today, as they are one of our matchups. Today, we're going to be watching a repeat of last night's final late night match of RNG versus IMT. That's the Detroit Renegades versus Immortals. And then later on, we will see Complexity versus LGL. But let's take a look at this matchup right now. Renegades versus Immortals. What did we see last night, ZP, from these teams? And how does that apply to what our expectations should be coming in today?
Well, I think one thing is if you go back and look at Watch Point Gibraltar, you saw one thing that was very clear, which is that I feel like the tank and support play coming out from the side of Immortals was certainly not on the same page, because you actually had on display a situation where Mangachu was losing very solidly the Grim Reality just about every time in a soldier-on-soldier battle. Now, that's not the only story of the fight, because, of course, Immortals wasn't able to win there despite that disparity. Why not? You saw Jesus coming in on off-tank, getting incredible contribution, and just overall for Immortals, they weren't able to give Grim extra support there. They were losing outright. So even with that DPS difference being significant in that case, the supporting cast for Renegades was playing far better last night.
The secondary DPS are really going to be important, because I think you're right that they will equalize each other a little bit with Mangachu and Grim Reality. That's going to be a battle that we watch generally as they pick different heroes. But Jesus, I think, played better than Agilities last night. Agilities has been somewhat quiet for the last about 3 weeks, I think. Not just the giant games we're expecting out of him. I think his Genji play needs to get to a higher level. That's where he made his name. His Roadhog play has been fine, I think. But the battle between Jesus and Agilities as we go forward is the one to watch in these matchups.
And it seems like they did have the most success when they were running 3 tanks with that Roadhog played by Agilities, because when they've tried 3 DPS, they just can't enable them, especially Grim Reality, as well as they have had in the past. Let's take a look, though, at the Renegades roster, as they are going to be the away team coming into today. And we already mentioned a couple of those names in Jesus and Mangachu, but then we've got IKO rounding out their DPS, someone who we've been looking to step it up on that Genji. It's given Renegades, maybe a little bit of a shot in the arm. We've talked about how Saipei was not lacking, but they've definitely been feeling good about his Genji. And then Zarya, we've also seen him on Diva. And then, of course, Juvenile, Sherlocky, and Jur going to be the consistency in the tank and support roles. Any thoughts and final comments on this Renegades roster coming into this matchup?
When you look at the history of the Renegades roster, they've always excelled when they've had a strong Zarya player. We had talked a little bit last night about how that enables Juvenile to be as aggressive as he likes to play. It takes some pressure off of other people. Aiko, while I do think that his Genji is not at the same level as their previous Genji player, I think his Zarya is definitely a higher level.
Right. I would say that right now Aiko is playing a better Zarya than we saw from Saipei. Genji-wise, he's been good. I wouldn't say he's been game-breaking in the way that we sometimes saw Saipei go off, but he's also, you take a look at overall, it hasn't been a case where you go, why is he on this? Maybe a few questionable Dragon Blades here and there, but Aiko has been reasonably solid, and when Renegades has struggled, you can't really point too much to him being a primary cause. So for a sub coming in here, Aiko's actually been making a pretty decent name for himself.
Well, he is definitely going to be a key to victory for them. But looking at last night's performance especially, let's take a look at our player to watch, because it is going to be Jesus. You had mentioned it earlier, one of the first things we talk about on the desk, and it came from behind. And in this case, it is going to be a pulse bomb. Because we were even talking about how when they were going up against McCree on Grim Reality, how difficult it is to play Tracer against tanks with that are all really trying to protect a somebody like that. And even with that, he was still building up ult charge. He wasn't getting any flashy kills with his pistols, but he was getting some really key pulse bombs, especially on King's Row. And so he's definitely going to be someone who could be a difference maker coming into this match. But let's go ahead and flip the table here and take a look at Immortals roster, as they're going to be coming into this one now down 0-1 in this matchup, and they're looking to tie that one up here and bring themselves one step closer to hopefully getting out of this potential fourth place spot coming into playoffs. And actually, they're in danger of not even getting in the playoffs, depending on how Liquid performs. But looking at their roster here, you've got Grim Reality and Agilities, of course, Nami and Hyped. And we've got Hyped in this tank role, but he's been flexing back and forth. We have seen him on the likes of Tracer and then Nathan and Verbo in the supportive roles. So if we talk about some of the strengths of Renegades, what are we expecting, and how does this Immortals roster change what happened yesterday and maybe find victory?
I mean, really, they're going to need more contribution out of almost everyone. When you take a look at how Renegades was dealing with them, it was almost every part of Immortals that was playing below par, which is a very big switch up from how things used to be, where we used to look at Immortals and say, wow, they're winning everything, they're doing well. I think it's a mix of game planning in terms of coming with compositions that don't necessarily suit their style, and it's a mix of players in general just having bad days relative to what we've expected of them. The only player that really looked very good yesterday was Grim, and everything else had flaws. But I think clearly I'd like to see them go back more to what they're good at. I don't think 3 DPS has been particularly kind to them, so maybe going back to that. And then certainly, of course, you're still dealing with Renegades when Mangachu is on Pharah. Run something that lets you remove him from the sky very effectively, very quickly, or things go downhill fast.
I would tend to agree. I think some of the new things they are trying have worked out a little bit for them, though, especially being more aggressive on the defense on Gibraltar is something they've been toying around with. It looked pretty decent last night. Hyped is still a question mark for me, but last night he showed us one of the better Tracer lives he's had in a very long time. He had a very nice 5-minute run on Tracer on that said Gibraltar map, so that could be a piece looking in place. But Grim Reality's effectiveness is going to be determined by the other team. So everyone else has to step up their game. Like you mentioned, that they're the ones who can control their destiny. Grim is at the will of the opposing team's diva.
Yeah, and while he is going to be a very important key to victory, another thing that it could make his life a little bit easier is dependent on the player to watch for Immortals, and it is going to be Agilities coming into this one. We're talking about your alt DPS. Well, he's going to be the one for Immortals, trying to match up what Jesus can bring, and in this case, we talked about maybe what we're wanting him or expecting him to play, maybe wanting to see more outstanding performances on Genji, but definitely going to be watching him on Roadhog to try to give the room that Grim Reality needs to actually succeed coming into this matchup. We do have the map, by the way, for map number 1 of this best of 5 series, and it is going to be Eichenwald, this time selected by Immortals, and this is something that they have been selecting.
Well, they would also want to select this against Renegades anyways, because Renegades has had 2 epic losses in map 5 on Eichenwald, and it's actually going to be pretty interesting for us from the viewer point of view here, because we get to see how a fresh Renegades team plays on Eichenwald, where have they been playing poorly on it because they've been fatigued, or have they been playing poorly on it because they are just bad at Eichenwald? Well, guess what? We get to answer that question to some extent in just a little bit.
Well, how they deal with second point, I think, is going to be most interesting. Granted that we get to second point, that was the problems that I think they had when they were looking a little fatigued. That was our guess that's why they were playing like that. How they handle the high ground and taking over the high ground on attack especially is going to be interesting to watch.
Well, especially because Immortals, they really favor the high ground, and we've critiqued Immortals in the past about how they play on most second points, most notably, of course, Hollywood, and it does seem like something they've been working on, because the last couple of times we've seen them on second, specifically on Eichenwald, they have seemed to have different answers. They've been playing the high ground defense, really enabling Grim Reality to rain down terror from above, most likely on 76 in this case. So it is going to be curious to see how these teams adapt, and in this case, Renegades, and how they can deal with it versus the other teams that Immortals has been facing off against. Yeah, I mean, taking a look at the best of 5 series, do you think that having the home team advantage gives Immortals any kind of advantage coming into this one, as they lost their previous matchups? Well, definitely on Hollywood and King's Row, that they can go to Eichenwald first?
Well, in theory, you would think it would give a bit of an advantage, especially because if you win first, then lose second, which isn't as much of a pick. You get your pick on Control, which is way more important now. Oasis is in play. The bottom line is, in theory, yes. In practice, it's been no, because home teams have been losing on their maps of choice. So I kind of want to say yes, but I would say right now it doesn't seem to matter as much just because teams are not really consistently finding maps that they're very good on that they can practice.
I would agree, and I think last night wasn't necessarily the map's fault why Immortals lost. They got outclassed on individual levels. They lost duels, 1v1s. They lost mechanical levels. So if none of that changes, the map is not going to be that big of a factor. That said, we are loading into Eichenwald, the war-torn, I guess, village from the Omnic Crisis. A lot of holes and roofs out there.
You know, there's a lot of holes, but clearly there's a lot of patchwork going on as well. You'd think for a full-scale assault where you actually got into the back, defeated some guy who might be Reinhardt superior, whatever's going on there. The actual castle itself is this weird mix of disrepair, but actually pretty well put together. So whatever they made it out of, it's pretty sturdy.
I think they'd be able to fix it up if people would just stop breaking all the railings. All of Overwatch's laborers are busy in Numbani fixing all the railings that get knocked down every time, in Hollywood too. So see, exactly, this kind of wanton destruction has to end if we ever want to fix up Eichenwald.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where, as far as it goes, the reason why you see teams break those railings, just for people wondering, are you just doing this for fun? No, they can actually block shots. There's definitely been times where I just know, even playing myself, where you're on something like a Widow, you go for a shot, it gets blocked by the railing, and it doesn't feel good. Now, you'd go, well, can't that break both ways? Probably, yes, but teams don't like dealing with that inconsistency for themselves, so that's why you'll see teams go around and break the railings in many cases.
Can I just ask, is wonton a new nickname for railings? No, I'm just kidding here.
It's a word.
It is a word.
Why you have to put that doubt in my mind?
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. Well, because I directed a Midsummer Night's Dream, and one of the actors said Terrier Rash Wonton, and well, it's just pronounced Wonton, I think.
And Wonton? Okay, Wonton.
Imagine this if you...
It's such a...
wonton is acceptable. I was just picturing Genji like stepping on like crab cheese wontons, which was an image.
And here
that I
I was sitting here thinking you and I were friends.
Thinking about food, but let's take a look here at the defense coming out here from the side of Renegades. Hex, anything here that's surprising you? Because it does look like it's a standard dive defense coming out.
Defensively, no, nothing all that surprising. Mangachu on 76 has been underwhelming, though, so let's keep an eye on that as we go forward. That dive defense is in full effect. See where they want to hold up. Grim on the other side will be on that 76 too. Agility's on the hog, looking for these early entry kills. They're giving up a lot of free space here, ZP.
And what we're seeing from Immortals, too, is that Immortals are just able to get in very quickly. That Winston leap, perhaps not what Juvenile is looking for, gets slept and immediately isolated. 2 kills here from the side of Immortals, and this is just going from bad to worse. Immortals coming in with new life, perhaps, but I just think the initiation coming in from the defense was not what you want from a dive-based defense.
No, surprising to say the least. He comes in over the top, does not get any of the support. A solo dive is not what you want to run when you're running the dive-based defense right there. They will grab this first point in spectacular, quickly fashion.
I really do like the matchups that are coming in here, though, because I'm not sure you'd want to run the defensive hero too often, and yet I feel like Mangachu would be having a much better time if he was on Roadhog here, because he, on the 76, it really did not work out very well at all last night, and that's the kindest way it can be put. I mean, shoulder tackling 76 is not the ultimate strategy. And he goes down right here, ends up poking, gets caught by Agilities, falls immediately, and Immortals now going to have a great opportunity to push us forward, and Renegades, again, kind of giving this away for free.
Jesus doing the best he can to try to pull it back. It's a pulse bomb. He's in the back lines, but no kills so far for him. And yeah, you can't die that early as a 76. That is one of your largest high ground presences now off of the board. Sherlocki will end up going off the edge himself. Grim Reality taking control of this high ground.
I didn't like that from Jesus, who's normally been very on point tracer-wise. They're going into the back line, fighting what is a 1v6. This is not a pub game. This is where you at least want a little bit of distraction coming in from the front. No one from Renegades was remotely nearby, and it's not like he was caught out. So that was a misplay there by Jesus, where he was probably looking for an early pickoff, but risk-reward not entirely there.
Well, they've gotten a lot of free push. Mangachu comes in over the top, though. Tactical Visor with the nano boost on him, looking for some targets, finds a little bit of damage there. Grim, Eighth, and Nomi all go down eventually. Agility's trying to even it with Sherlocki, but that should give the defense some room to stabilize here.
And that's one thing about Eichenwald that we're seeing right now is that you have nano visors coming in, and because you can come in from interesting flanks, from the high ground, it's actually difficult to protect yourselves from that as effectively as you might want. And they're able to leverage that to take that team fight relatively quickly.
Agilities will take down one of the tanks early, misses his pulse bomb stick there, so the Reinhardt will stay alive as both teams face off. Here comes another visor.
Well, Nomi get away with the line. Grim Reality taking a snooze on top. It's a great sleep dart to remove him from the fight early on. Ico, of course, sleeping in turn, but now he might be going to the back. Dragon Blade is ready, but I don't think he wants to use it here. There's so many of Immortals that are already down that I don't think they need to invest this. I think they can get ahead on ult economy here and go from there, and that's exactly what they're doing, Hex.
Yeah, he's fine. There was a bio grenade that came down there, so he's just going to dash through a couple of targets. Agilities has been the last one to die a couple of different times, roaming up top on this Roadhog, but after the very early offensive aggression came out from Immortals, rather, Renegades has absolutely stabilized, now in a good position to take this high ground back, now diving back in.
They are diving back in. Jesus able to take down Ivan very early on here, and now suddenly from Immortals is kind of falling apart in how they want to initiate here on second. They had looked like there was practice in the beginning, but here we go. We have Dragon Blade coming out, and Ico getting very little from it, but this is so aggressive from Renegades. I think they're throwing good money after bad. Graviton comes in here from Immortals, and Nomi right there with the fall through. Gonna be taking down 3. And even though the defense will be able to fight one more fight here, X, they're going to be giving up most of the rest of second because of this.
They did force a sound barrier. That's when things were looking kind of even.
They were
back
backcapping this entire time. They had Lucio gets it back. There might not be another fight.
No, that's some
big.
nice pressure there. They were able to clean up. Juvenile will come in over the top on the Winston, though, to stall it out. Now the kills are coming in. Mangachu and Ico combine for a couple. A reflected whole hog will take down Agilities. Ico brings this back for his team on the Genji.
That was much closer than it should have been. Normally, that'd be a case where you have a really set up second fight, but because you had Jer sneaking to the back line off of that very aggressive dive defense, there was a possibility that they could have gotten that for free. It was within about, I would say, 3 seconds or so.
Very close indeed. That's one way to counter a very aggressive defense who's sitting outside of your spawn. We've seen backcaps like that happen before. A giant hook will hook in Jesus, but a sleep dart will save his life. The Earthshatter goes down, hits no one from below.
Does not hit what they're looking for. Meanwhile, Jesus in the back about to get a Pulse Bomb. He's in great position to pick off an Ana here. Now the Pulse Bomb is up, but Grim, Tac Visor comes out, just cleaving through the front. Jesus might have missed his opportunity. 5 kills coming in here from Immortals, and Jesus going to fall immediately right after. So it's interesting how ultimate timings can affect things there, because if he had Pulse Bomb up, which would have been another 5%, he had a great opportunity to take down Ethan before that fight even began.
Right. Well, look who's coming to the party. It is hyped on his Tracer. Speaking of Pulse Bombs, he has his ready too, perhaps trying to carry on the momentum that he got last night on the Tracer. Some of the best he's looked on it in recent memory as they get this first push through the castle. 4 free door will shut behind him as they take first bend, setting a pretty quick pace here on the offense.
The offense has definitely recovered. It was looking a little bit dicey on second for a while, but Renegades now up to them to hold here on last. Jesus coming in from the back, looking for this Pulse Bomb. Hyped already down this fight. Pulse Bomb goes down, but it comes at a cost. Doesn't kill anything, dies to Ethan. So 5v5, Immortals still has the ability to pull this back. Grim on the Juvenile, that was a very aggressive overcharge. So this is a little bit dangerous for Renegades, but here comes Mangachu. Another Tac Visor with Nano Boost coming on the way. Been using this a lot and getting pretty good success off them, but that one was pretty overly ambitious.
The retreat does come in the right time. Their Agilities takes out Sherlocky too. They're swinging this back over as Grim comes in. Earthshatter goes down, does not take all that much over.
That is a big Earthshatter by Nomi. Knocks down 3, and 3 kills result immediately from it. 5 kills here from Immortals, and Renegades down to their last opportunity to delay this out. They will potentially get a chance, but Immortals now really could choke them out, because you look at the back. Grim Reality holding on to the Tac Visor, and he's going to use this for cleanup with the sound barrier. Just going in on anything that's coming in, but counter sound barrier comes out here, gives a little bit of life to the defense, but still hard to bring back. 4 versus 4 on the point. May already removed from it. No one on Grim here in the back line, as Immortals just needs a little bit more.
The Earthshatter will come down from the defensive. Reinhardt does not get much there. They squeak it closer to the cart. Still no kills on the defense, though. Ico will come in, takes down Nomi. That's what you need to start pulling this back. Still another Graviton will come out, grabs a few. A lot of blue on that cart there, ZP.
They're going to be able to push this back. It was very close, but the problem for Immortals is that they were stuck there with about 4 people left, 2 people on, and even as they were able to kill those 2, the delay was sufficient for respawns to get back in there.
0.15 meters. I'm not going to even try to convert that. It's less than a foot. I believe if my math is kind of right, I shouldn't have even tried. Now they're getting a little bit aggressive. Have to be careful of the back cap. We've seen this map back capped before.
They're trying to take on Nomi there, but that was rough. They didn't have a good angle, and now Nomi gonna charge back in, supported from the back. Pulse Bomb out, hype, sticking Jer. 6v4 now, 4 Immortals coming back in, and you're right, they did get a little bit over-aggressive and going after Nomi now, and now they could very well pay the price. Agilities lands the hook. Doesn't get the fall through immediately. Mangachu still stalling out here as May, but everything going the way of Immortals right now. It's gonna be up to Jesus to try and turn this right back. Blizzard comes in, and the Pulse Bomb does take down Agility, so it's one pickoff, but when you have defensive respawns coming in, it can be big, but I'm not sure it's enough. Now that Jesus has gone down, Grim clears out the rest with Attack Visor, and the round completes for Immortals with a mere 10 seconds left remaining.
Renegades seemed to really clutch on Mangachu when he had ults, were the only fights I remember them winning decisively. Tactical Visors a couple times, there was a Blizzard that came out late, but struggle a little bit. Mangachu bringing it back with ultimates, but that was the only time they looked really strong.
The problem for Renegades when they run Mangachu on the 76 is that generally, not every fight as we saw, because there was one fight that went kind of badly, but overall Mangachu actually has pretty decent game sense on when to use Tac Visor, when to call for the Nano. The problem is that you don't really see him doing a whole lot in the interim when he doesn't have that power. It's his ability to play 76 right now is not that he's out-dealing people with the mechanical skill part of it and winning fights without ultimate, but he's making every ultimate high efficiency, which on some level is very important, but on the other hand, it's also hurting the impact he could be having with that character compared to people like Grim Reality that generally have the total package.
Immortals does finish out their first attack, 10 seconds left in the bank there as we flip things around, and they will have to play defense instead. A little more tank-heavy composition it looks like they want to run out. I would be very surprised if Renegades does not run a Pharah here. Mangachu, his favorite hero by far.
Well, it's also a hero that he is by far the best at in his entire hero pool, where his 76, clearly we pointed out some of the flaws, but his Pharah is extremely good. Yes, you do throw a lot of support behind that Pharah to make it work, but Renegades is often rewarded with Mangachu diving in, picking up 3, 4, sometimes even 5 or 6 kills with how good the engage can be. So this is something that Immortals really needs to game plan around and deal with. A lot of times it is Grim on that duty, but Grim is just one man, and he's actually the only real option for long range pressure on Mangachu here. So hopefully for Grim's sake, he's going to be getting support, because I'll tell you this much, Mangachu certainly will be.
Absolutely. That was a micro fight that we highlighted earlier coming into this. Mangachu versus Grim. They will be going at it mostly because the hero selection process that it's Pharah Beast versus the hit scan. Oftentimes Agilities and Grim do take down 2 right away. Agilities grabbed a 3rd. We expected him to show a big Roadhog. They're getting a lot of work done.
When Agilities is having a good game, you can expect him to get an early pickoff in many of the fights. And when you break down Overwatch stats, just getting that first pickoff greatly increases your odds of winning the fight overall. So his Roadhog very much on point, and thus far it's been working out here for Immortals, but still a long way to go in this first point defense.
That pick potential, a big reason why you see Roadhogs so often in compositions. Fits in a lot of different places. Mangachu comes up over the top, trying to get some damage on. Will force the team back here, but Agilities again takes out Juvenile. No tank now for the offense coming in.
They just backed up and laid in fire, and down goes Mangachu. Grim, so accurate, that 76 rifle, just immediately removing him from the fight. So thus far, they've actually been pretty effective at keeping Mangachu contained, and part of it is that he's approaching from angles where Grim has so much time to actually throw him out of the sky.
Mangachu has an option of either going over the top and facing Grim's rifle or coming in alone on the flank. We've seen him do that before, get on the flank on the Pharah, but he doesn't have a combo with him, so it's going to be difficult for him to try to find the sustain. He comes up over the top again, eats so much damage on the way in.
And I'm going to note there, you also had Athan really helping out. That's something that I don't think Immortals was doing as much before. It is out of the road playbook, but Jesus coming in, starting to open an opportunity, taking down 2. Now it's really going to be on Athan and Grim to bring this back, and Grim does have the nano boost on him, uses Attack Visor, takes Mangachu out with that, but the threat is not gone. Here comes Ico, Dragon Blade on the way, slicing into the building, looking for Grim. Zarya Shield stops him for a moment, but will he be able to get out? Grim is able to sprint away, but he's one of the few remaining. But so long as he's alive, he can heal up and come back in.
They really wanted Grim there. He got discorded and chased very hard. Ico is going to go down to the Lucio as he was trying to get that done. Sherlocky takes out Nomi here. A sound barrier comes off for the defense, trying to stay alive during this engagement. It's been the best push so far for Renegades. Jesus will grab another. Push continues.
They don't even have a tick here yet, though. Immortals has been very much rope-a-doping this, where they've been running around, not dying anywhere near as quickly as Renegades needs to take this point. That said, Mangachu is back in this fight and does connect. Grim going to be out. This means Mangachu now with plenty of room on the point, and actually Immortals are just out of gas. They have to give it up, and go to defend second.
Rope-a-dope is a term we use a lot with Immortals. They are one of the best teams at stall, which has given them a chance to win a lot of the assault maps, which we'll be going to next. However, Mangachu comes in over the top, tries to get a barrage. Grim shuts him down.
That could have been massive. Unfortunately, Grim had the solution there, the Helix rocket right to the stationary Pharah. And now Immortals, after taking him down, is fighting in this tiny choke point, but it works out for Agilities. Gets a hook, gets the early kill, and now Grim is in his comfort spot. This is his happy place right now, Heck. Here on the top, plenty of room, very long range for a soldier, and very deadly when you go for tactical visor flanks from that positioning.
Grim uncontested on the high ground. Good idea, bad idea?
Great idea for Grim. And are we making old Animaniacs references?
I'm glad you got the Animaniacs reference. There we go, on the same page on that one at least. Grim is up top, has tactical visor, will pop it right now.
Goes for the tac visor, and this is an interesting tac visor. I think it's a little bit early. You can wait till people come in, but he still thinks he has a shot and takes down one. It's all right. They'll get that. I don't think they really needed that to throw it back with Agilities getting the pickoff, and Jesus just wondering here, where's Grim?
Jesus shows up late for the party there. He had a pulse bomb to bring. Does find Ethan down below, able to clean him up to start this off.
Well, that's an entirely different type of justice raining from above in the form of a pulse bomb. Different type of explosive, same concept. Look at how deep Immortals is right now. Still very much in Renegade's face. Haven't really seen Immortals go this deep on Eichenwald before, but it's going to buy them some time. I don't know if it's as wise, though, because Ico cleaning things up here, not only cleaning things up but with these resets, but also going to be able to save a Dragon Blade for the next fight.
Ico goes to town there with the dash resets. It is something that Immortals has tried to incorporate in their game, being more aggressive on the defenses, not only to set up on first defenses, but to try to do a little bit of the spawn camping that some of the more aggressive teams have been doing. Renegade, Selfless come to mind, of course. Agility is going to hold this high ground, looking for hooks on this defense as they set up, rotating again high with his Lucio. Still nothing. Both teams just staging up.
Both teams are looking for a play here. Of course, Renegade's being stalled out for quite a while. The pulse bomb on the Nathan immediately. This is going to open so many things up. That's a very big play here by Jesus, and that's why Renegade's stalling. But the Graviton Surge comes in for Immortals, and that's going to let them equalize a bit here. So despite the early pickoff, they gamble in with the Graviton, and they're rewarded with the team wipe. And now Renegades are going to be down to maybe 2 more pushes, X.
As you mentioned, about 90 seconds left on the clock. That will allow for maybe 2 pushes. It's going to be difficult. They're going to have to push into some ultimates. Grim Reality, most notably with Tactical Visor at the ready. Really the only catalyst they've had on their offense here, much like their defense. The best thing we had was ultimates from Mangachu. It's been Jesus hitting pulse bombs to really stifle these fights.
Well, 5v5 right now going to the next fight. Juvenile is down, but Ethan is down as well. They've been doing a great job of taking him out of the fight, but they don't have the immediate fall through to take advantage of the lack of healing as Grim going off once more. No tactical visor required, just solid mechanical play, removing 2 players from the fight. And again, we're not really seeing this come out of Mangachu as much. He has to use tac visor for these kills, and that's been a big point of contention here between these 2 teams.
It's been Jesus for the most part on this Renegade's offensive push. He's taking out healing, probably trying to get a little bit more going on, but they've been going into most of these fights 6v5. Ico's going to have a chance with the Dragon Blade.
Well, they're on the payload right now, but here comes Grim coming in on the flank, and he gets slept. They were ready for it. He's going to be taking a nap. That ultimate not going to do anything in this situation, but Agility's trying the whole hog here onto a point, but it's very close. They almost have this a second. Immortals needs to dive on this. And they will, as the rest of Renegades still resetting. So the Nano Visor wasn't even as necessary to win this fight.
Well, Grim is awake now up top, and he's doing so much damage onto these last reinforcements of Renegades trying to get in, but the kill feed all in Immortals' favor.
And this is do or die. Ico needs a huge Dragon Blade here to bring this back. Gets 1, looking for more. It's Jesus and Ico in the back line. Double flanker, they pick up 3, but Agilities is trying to be the glue here. He's already grabbed Mangachu pretty quickly into this fight. Ico, the last hope here, gets pooped back, has to dash back up. At least he died that way. No crocodile food this time, and this is always rough when your Ana player is on Sombra just to delay and buy time. But for Renegades, this is all they can do. If they are not able to send the payload, it's going to end right here.
It's desperation mode, and Earthshatter will come down, put Jer on the floor. That is Immortals taking our first map of Eichenwald's. They looked very strong. Agility's Roadhog got so much done, even beyond hooks. It's always the measure of a good Roadhog is when the hook's on cooldown, is he still getting work done? He was.
Agility's had a great game there. Grimreality was very measured. And again, it wasn't just him getting kills with Tactical Visor. He was finding ways of taking out 2, 3 people with normal 76 DPS. And again, I'm going to draw the comparison where you take a look at Mangachu. He had great Tactical Visors, but when he didn't have that up, he wasn't getting much done. And when you think about when Renegades is successful, when are they successful? When Mangachu is on the Pharah or on the Roadhog. It is a big step down right now for this team when they put him on 76, and that's just fact.
Yeah, part of me wants to ask why we're seeing this, but I feel like there really is no good answer as far as we can't know why. Maybe he's practicing it. Maybe it's been going well in scrims. They've been beating everyone in scrims on 76, guys. I don't know what you're talking about.
Everyone has been beating everyone in scrims. It is actually impossible to have a loss in scrims if you add up the math between all the teams saying that they win all their scrims.
Yeah, we've done the math. Just trust us. But yeah, that's certainly what it is. But I do want to ask that question is because we talk about Mangachu being really strong on Pharah, and what makes him stronger on Pharah, and what in specifically those strengths not actually ending up happening when he plays 76.
Mechanically, they're just different overall. Mangachu's never been the person that we think of as hit scan, and that's the reason we differentiate between hit scan DPS and projectile DPS. A lot of it is predictive nature. It's a little more forgiving sometimes on projectile. I don't even want to say more forgiving or less forgiving. They're completely different skill sets.
Overall in Overwatch, there are very few unicorns that can do absolutely top-tier projectile DPS and absolutely top-tier hit scan. Generally speaking, players are going to gravitate towards one end of the spectrum or the other. You take a look at a player like Shadowburn. Amazing Genji, historically. But you put him on heroes that are more hit scan or off tank, it's far sketchier. You look at a player like Taimu, one of the very best McCree Widowmakers in the game, also has a pretty good tracer at times where you see him on it. You know what? When he goes on the Genji, nowhere near as impressive. Or reverse end of the spectrum, you see a player like Tailspin who is competent at hit scan, but really made his name off of being one of the very best Pharahs in the game back in the day. The point is that generally speaking in Overwatch, you don't have too many players that are amazing at hit scan and amazing at projectile. And you look at Mangachu's favorite heroes, he's very much a projectile player over a hit scan player. And right now, I feel like Renegades is much weaker when they throw him into that hit scan role.
We even saw him on Mei earlier, which is not something you don't normally think of her as a projectile DPS, but definitely mechanically projectile oriented. And then, of course, you really rely on his decision quality on Mei as far as walls and the other aspects of that. And as personally, I don't really identify with some of these skills as a hammer main. That's how accurate I am, is just swinging that hammer. No, but going over to IMT here, Immortals, we talked about their path to success being just all parties contributing. And it seems like they did that here on Eichenwald.
It's now getting to the point where if you're playing against them, you have to decide who do we try to answer first, who we throw resources at, because Agilities has made the case that you can't do anything while he's alive on Roadhog.
I think right now when you go against Immortals, I mean, it's a tough call, right? Because you know that Grim is usually going to be out and flanking. But I would say in between periods of Tactical Visors where Grim does set up flanks that can devastate your entire team, if Agility is on Roadhog, you can probably make the case that you need to find a way of removing him from the fight early on. What that means is probably using an Ana, use the Bionade on Agilities, find a way of separating him out, because he is very consistent at getting first fight hooks when he is on. And that was something that was a huge thorn in Renegade's side this entire map.
Yeah, that's why I actually really love seeing him on that hero of Roadhog, because when you play Genji, you can make plays happen with those Dragon Blades every once in a while. And then other than that, you're contributing to plays with damage. And on Roadhog, he can actually make plays on a much more consistent basis, maybe on a smaller scale, but you could see how he was having an effect. We also saw a little bit of a split as far as focus from Jesus, because at times Jesus was trying to focus down the Roadhog, but as he was struggling to bring him down, we saw him moving over to Aethan a little bit more and trying to bring down Aethan. But then what ended up happening? Well, the rest of the team was actually falling. We do have our next map coming up here. It's going to be Temple of Anubis, selected by the Renegades. And how do we feel coming into Assault in general? And how do we think specifically about Temple of Anubis?
Well, yesterday we had a very back and forth between these two teams on Anubis, and we had no actual result. It ended up drawing out. So I'm hoping that we will come to some conclusion here, but very back and forth. A little bit different styles. Renegades' offense was a blitzkrieg offense, very quick a lot of the times. Immortals' defense, especially stall defense, has been especially strong lately. It went very back and forth yesterday. There was no winner yesterday. Not sure what to expect on this map.
Going in on this, I mean, even when you do have scenarios on a map like Temple Anubis where you get 4-4, you don't really know how second attack Anubis is going to go because sometimes teams are just very good on defense. Offense, not everything clicks together the way that it needs to. So you can't take that as an indicator that you're going to get another offensive battle again. I would love to get another offensive battle again so long as it ends in 5-4 as opposed to 4-4, but we'll have to see. I think it's probably more likely that we get a more standard 3-2, 2-1 finish here.
Yeah, uneven score the dream, though. That's what we're looking for. We want to see one team coming out on top here as we're going into Temple of Anubis. And Renegades, they want to be that team coming out on top because they need to tie this series up. Immortals are up 1-0 in the series. It's already looking a little bit different than it was last night. Gentlemen, take it away here on very sunny and hot Temple of Anubis.
Well, we are on Temple of Anubis, and this is a map certainly where, at least on the offense, Renegades definitely gets a lot more value in how they run things. They throw Mangachu onto the Fair a lot of the time, and they will be able to come in from very interesting angles. When Mangachu's on the attack, of course, he comes in over the side. A lot of different ways of approaching, very sneaky, but we will save that till next round because we're looking at the Renegades defense first here, Hex, and this is interesting. We don't have Mangachu on a 76 this time. Instead, he's taking up the mantle of Diva.
Definitely a different approach, but you and I have both had questions about the effectiveness of his 76, so perhaps switching it up now. Onto the Diva, it's going to add 3 tanks into the mix, 3 traditional tanks, not even the half-tank DPS that is Roadhog. Mangachu on Diva, Aiko, Zarya, of course they're going to run Juvenile on the Reinhardt. The only sole DPS is going to be Jesus. It's an interesting conversation. We don't see a lot of just triple tank on defense. Oddly enough, on this map, you see a lot of dive defenses.
You do, and one thing that's actually interesting as far as the defense goes for Renegades here is that I'm just thinking how good it would be against the standard offense from LG Evil where they have Jake on the offensive McCree. You know what can ruin your day as an offensive McCree when you need very pinpoint coordination? A Diva in your face with defensive matrix.
Diva can ruin a lot of DPS days, but they're going right in now. Agility's trying to get some dash through. So far, it has been bloodless on the point as both teams clash together. Another dive in will demech the Diva. Aiko takes that out. Hyped is going to demech his counterpart, though, as well. Hype getting a lot of work done on Diva.
Mangachu going to be first to fall here, perhaps a little bit too far up Diva-wise. Not able to get out in time, and now Agility's in the back lane. He's taking out Chalaki. The healing is not going to be here for Renegades, and that means Immortals almost certainly going to be able to turn this into a favorable situation. Their poke more effective because it simply lasts. They get that kill on the Aiko. Down goes Jer, and that's going to be it. A very quick take here from Immortals, who overall definitely look a little bit more impressive than we saw from them yesterday.
Absolutely. I love the Grim on the Tracer here. He could open up this fight with a Pulse Bomb. It's generally the only ult you're going to have up after a push like that. Nomi very close to his Primal Rage as well in the 90s on percentage time. Grim creeping on the left side, looking for an opening. Going to go to this left flank. A little more measured approach here, perhaps waiting for Agilities to dive in. You want to coordinate those dives with this composition.
Well, he's going to go into the Pulse Bomb. It's like, no, it was close. But it does mean that Juvenile gets to live, gets to get healed up. But for Grim Reality, still moving in here. Pretty aggressive from Immortals, but they lose Nomi pretty early on. So they're going to have to do this without a major tank. Agilities, though, here comes Dragon Blade. He's going for cleanup. Has 1, gets 2, and this is a very effective Dragon Blade here so far. I'm going to end up with 3 before it's all said and done. So though they're down Nomi, it's very effective, and Immortals might be taking the second point with extreme speed.
Agilities with the 5K. It is the Overwatch Carbon Series call-out comeback, as we say. This is the moment we ask if a player can do a good thing. They end up doing it. Agility's putting the team on his Cyber Ninja back right now. They go through it. It's been all Immortals in the kill feed.
It's all Immortals here. They have Nomi's back in the fight. They have a full 6. Mangachu with the self-destruct does take down Agilities, but the counter self-destruct from Hype going to clear out the point even more, and that's enough to remove Renegades and let Immortals get this with very high speed. So far, this is actually mirroring a bit of what we saw yesterday.
It's one of the reasons we focus so heavily on Genjis. Across region, it has been a Genji-centric era in Overwatch because of the ability of Dragon Blade and dash resets. Able to win a fight on a level that some heroes are not able to tilt that way, and that Genji play from Agilities proving the point right there. Very good, especially on assault maps.
Well, for Renegades, yesterday I remember talking about them saying it was probably going to be pretty difficult to bring it back and they'd be looking more at a draw. Now, it was a draw in the end, but it was a far more exciting draw than I had painted a picture of. So today I'm going to reserve judgment and say maybe we will see both teams with very good offenses here again. I think perhaps it is a bit of a perfect storm where You have above average Anubis offenses with below average defenses, and that's causing this crazy back and forth. But Renegades still show us that they can bring today what they brought last night.
Never know what you're going to get from Overwatch teams day to day. It's one of the fun aspects of esports. Casting and watching both, always willing to be surprised. Jesus, for the moment, queued up on the Widowmaker on this map in particular would not be a very large surprise if he comes out on it. What I like, though, is the Immortals on defense. Grim happens to be on his best hero right now.
And if Grim has been watching game tape, if Immortals has been prepping correctly, they should be watching that back window where Mangachu goes through almost every time. Sometimes he goes to the front, but if you were just playing the odds, you can guess that 70% of the time he's going to come through the window that right now Agilities is right nearby. In fact, I would love to see Agilities just sit there and wait to hook him down because you got to think he's going to be coming in from that angle.
70% of the time, it works every time. Either Mangachu or Ico will be one to come over there. Rarely do they send no one over there. And actually, the times they failed on offense is when they did not go that way around. However, right up front come both of them over the top. Ico does dive in. So far, no damage done as they continue the poke back and forth. Mangachu's got to be careful.
Mangachu right now is trying to buy distraction for the other flankers. You have both a Tracer and a Genji that have gone to the back line. Now that they've drawn the attention back, Mangachu's going to be able to come in through the front. So he doesn't choose the crazy flanking path this time around, but that might be to their detriment. Now 3 kills here for Immortals. Agilities cleaning up both flankers with that Roadhog primary. Now Mangachu, one of the last ones remaining, but he no longer has the distractions that keep pressure off of him. This is very rough, even for a player of the caliber of Mangachu.
Ethan was taken out there early, Ethan rather, as that was the only pick this dive composition got. It seems like Mangachu wants to make his life very difficult. Ethan will go down again in the backline. However, Grim was able to take down the support for Mangachu in his Mercy.
I think that's actually a very smart move. He knew that everyone else on the team was on the point, that Ethan was alone. It's going to work out, and it gives him a 65, so a very intelligent game decision. The barrage comes out, Grim Reality is down, and Mangachu actually goes down before he's able to get safely back to the skies. So Immortals perhaps can stall this out a little bit, but it is going to be hyped just about versus the world here. Is with his Reinhardt, but horrifically outnumbered, and Ico dash resetting back and forth. That's going to clean up the last few remnants here of Immortals, and should lead the Renegades getting this point.
They will get this point. It's almost a compliment at this point when Mangachu solo ults you like he did to Grim in that last fight. That's just paying tribute to your problem. I'm going to use my barrage just on you. It's exactly what happened. Some ultimates coming into this. Resurrection will be one to watch as they have the ability to get very aggressive and bring people back to life.
And I gotta say here, even though you're up against the Pharaoh, I don't necessarily like McCree here on this last point. The sightlines are not favorable. And oh, what a boom! That saved so many people. It broke his Deadeye line of sight. Wow. Grim gonna have to do this the old-fashioned way. And Mangachu, a little bit overzealous and going for Grim, ends up taking a hammer to the back of his jetpack as a result. So right now, Immortal certainly in a good spot to defend. They're gonna go for the res, but I'm not convinced that was a good idea. Nomi answers with an Earth Shatter. Jesus going to go down immediately. And even with the sound barrier coming out here from Renegades, it's matched by sound barrier by Immortals. And they're having a real tough time actually converting on any kills.
Sound barrier not coming in quick enough to save a couple of lives. Very back and forth right now. Grim Reality's been pushed into this corner several times over, but still no progress yet on the point as it continues to be contested.
Well, they go for the Graviton just to clean things up, and that is certainly going to slam the door in Renegade's face. They will not be able to take this point, at least not on this push.
Oh, Grim doing his cowboy work, despite the Deadeye not working out for him early on, which had Mangachu dead to rights, knocked in the corner. He will have Deadeye up for this next one. Mangachu, who previously used an ultimate just to eliminate Grim from the map, will have his ultimate up as well. Ico will be one to watch. We talked about the importance of Dragon Blade on these last points in Assault in particular. He's got it going. Hasn't had the breakout Genji moment just yet in this tournament.
No, not quite yet, and this is going to be difficult for them to really do too much with these DPS ults without support ults backing them up. Not impossible, but really require catching Immortals off guard with truly superior positioning. And as I say that, of course, Juvenile does not have truly superior positioning. Gildies takes him down immediately, and they're already down 1, which has made this much more difficult. We'll see if they invest ultimates into it, but it's already fairly dicey.
Well, Grim will take down Jur with that Deadeye. Happy to get his one there. The combo still poking around in there. Jesus comes in, hits a huge pulse bomb, takes out 2 tanks.
And there's the barrage coming in over the top because Jesus opened the door. Ico looking for the bit of cleanup, slicing. Ethan, no chance of living there. And Immortals going to be thrown off this point to some degree. Renegades making it happen off of that big pulse bomb by Jesus. And now, Immortals have given up 2 ticks here already, or at least about to be 2 ticks. Here comes Nomi, dropping the Earth Shatter. Knocks down a few, but the follow through, not necessarily there. But they did get a nice kill onto Mercy, which means that if they do get pickoffs, they're not gonna have to worry about the res. But Grim just went down again. This is gonna be difficult to actually bring back.
Well, it's desperation time as Ethan has switched over to the Reaper of all things. It has been all Renegades on all these kills, so close.
They are just a small little tick away, but you have Agilities coming back in there. Not able to get as much as he wants. Hype, though, on to Jesus. A few pickups here for Immortals, but almost everyone's down. It's just Verbo, and that is going to be it. The round is capped, and we're going to be going to extra rounds here on Anubis with plenty of time in reserve.
A sequel to what we saw yesterday. Anubis back and forth on this map between these teams. 2-2 so far with a lot of time in each bank. A little over 3, most of the way to 6 minutes on the other side of things.
So just so people know, as far as this goes here, because Immortals has more time, yes, you will be seeing Renegades on the attack, not once, but twice in a row. So there's no mistake there. It's not Mangachu going for a defensive Pharah, but I kind of would almost like to see a defensive Pharah at this point with how he has been playing on the non-Pharah heroes so far tonight.
Well, we made good note of his 76 being questionable at times. His Diva, which he ran earlier, died immediately to Hype's Diva. If you're going to get into a Diva battle, you don't want to really be going against Hyped, who's been on that Diva for a very long time. However, it is the attack, so he'll be playing the Pharah. He's been very good at the Pharah on attack. Most of the compositions are not changing up a great deal. Grim is going to stick on the defensive McCree.
Well, just to break down how they ran that attack last time, and it was very interesting how they did that because they got one Genji to the left, they got a Tracer to the right, and once the flanking pressure forced people back, that's where Mangachu just came straight up the gut and went to land rockets onto otherwise distracted players. So I think a key here for Immortals who are going to defend this, they need to shut down one of the flanking routes early before they get them in that pincer setup.
I would agree. Mangachu coming in over the top, trying to just damage the shield. Ethan very far back in the corner. Very likely Mangachu's target. He's been a top priority for this Renegades team. He has died early in a lot of fights through no fault of his own, except just extraordinary pressure being put on Ethan. They will fall back to try to defend him, but they've given up a lot of ground, now sitting below in a shooting gallery.
They are stuck in this room, which is hardly great positioning, but they're also not getting flanked anywhere near as hard as they were before, which means they have a much better chance of deathballing their way out of this. Juvenile is already down, so they can have some confidence here in a 6v5. However, with Hyped falling, that actually makes things much rougher for Immortals. And Jesus already with the pulse bomb takes down 2. He built that incredibly fast and made this room incredibly unsafe here for Immortals. But Electric Cowboy coming in. And they're giving Grim all the space and respect in the world right now. Not Juvenile, but you see what happens when you don't give a Electric Cowboy a bit of space.
Well, still poking in. The combo still alive over top. They are going to get reinforcements. Mangachu will barrage down Nomi as that is the kill flipped over. Jesus goes down to Grim, though, back and forth.
Well, the Fallen have been rezzed here, and yet here's Agility. He's just 76 out of nowhere, picks up 2, and he's actually able to take Mangachu right out of the sky. And if Immortals is able to pull us back, which is looking more likely now after that pulse bomb set them in a rough position, I think that this might force a change on Mangachu because you really want to Pharah into McCree 76? That's not a winning prospect.
If it were anyone else running the Pharah, I would say that switch would already happen, but Mangachu, notably a Pharah enthusiast, a little bit stubborn sometimes on switching over. He's going to give it at least one more go, but this double hit scan is going to spell all sorts of trouble for not only Mangachu, but it's still pretty good against the flanker options that they're running as well.
It's not bad, but Juvenile flooding into this room early on is able to take down Ethan with a little bit of help, so they're not going to have that healing power early on. They force out a kind of a panic graviton there that does very little. Now as a result, you see Renegades moving in with a brilliant opportunity here to turn this back, but Agility's still in this fight. Grim Reality, not so much, but it's really Nomi and Hype that are carrying this back. The tank play of Immortals covering when the DPS are not. And we didn't see that last night, but here comes Ico moving in, Dragon Blade onto the point, looking for Verbo. Will get Verbo, should pick up the double kill with Mangachu, and this will go the way of Renegades.
Very solid defense, but it does finally falter. We're going to go on to last point here, but 1 minute and 10 seconds left to push it. Resurrection and Barrage are up. I'd be surprised we don't see them happen very quickly here.
Well, this is where they are looking for the quick strike, and the Barrage taking down one despite the defensive matrix in Mangachu's face. He's going down for a nap, but still alive and in this fight. And grim reality, the Deadeye comes in, not only going to prevent any opportunity of an additional res, but gets Mangachu out of the fight as well. He gives his life for that, but for the defense, that is almost always a win because your respawns are coming back in quickly. Jesus still an X factor here, but I think even he knows that this fight is over, and they only have one more good fight left anyway, so no point in trying to stall that out.
Yeah, it's a smart move to get out there because they will reset and try to get back in. That Resurrection unused last time as the Deadeye came out before it, so still look for that in this incoming fight. Juvenile will switch off onto the D.Va, a little more sustainable hero on this point for this last push.
Last opportunity here for Renegades to put up 4 on the scoreboard. Immortals, of course, looking to position themselves for a 2-0 series lead if they can win Anubis. Pulse Bomb comes in from Jesus, gets absolutely nothing, which is rare because he's been very consistent on. It's going to be more up to Mangachu, but here comes the Nano Visor. Mangachu just removed with authority. And that's going to be Agility's rolling through, but here comes the res.
It's only got 1, there's 2, able to bring a couple back. Not ideal at all. Sherlocky takes a lot of damage.
Battle Mercy, activate, and die. Die quickly. So, Immortals able to handle that relatively easily. It's a great Nano Visor that just sort of stops Renegades where they stand, and it kind of shows you how much Renegades has been relying on Jesus to land just incredible pulse bombs and break things open, and the time that he doesn't, it goes pretty bad for them in a hurry.
Well, unable to complete the last push. That is 3 points on the board for Renegades. The path for Immortals to win this map now wide open. Just have to capture last one time, 5 minutes and 49 seconds to do so. And they could jump out to, I'd say, somewhat a surprising 2-0 series lead after Renegades 3-0'd them last night. It was a closer 3-0, but still 3-0 nonetheless.
It is interesting to see how much can change from night to night, although I will note that 2 things. 1, Renegades clearly has troubles on Nike involved, whether it be map 5 or map 1, as we saw.
Yeah.
And part of it, I do think, is Mangachu in the 76. So it's a much better map for Immortals that we have not seen Immortals play Renegades on until just a moment ago. Second, we also have the part where Anubis was incredibly close between both teams yesterday. Really could have gone either way, and
well,
we are seeing it go the other way. Yeah, it stood in the middle of the draw. But as all I'm saying there is that it's very close between the two. So the fact that we have some variance kicking in here, perhaps, and Immortals might take Anubis here if they're able to get 4 points, shouldn't be that surprising. So you don't necessarily have a narrative change here despite the margin of victory that Renegades has last night. I just think that Immortals could have taken Anubis last night, and Ike involved, not very good for Renegades.
They were close enough, and as I mentioned in pregame, Renegades had won simply on mechanicals and out-dueling 1v1. Not the case today. That variance, as you mentioned, is kicking in a little bit. Jesus has been the most consistent part of the team. He will try to put them on his frail Tracer back. Tries to get some work done here, jumps off the edge.
She actually does tons of yoga. That back is incredibly resilient. Not frail at all.
Right, she's dainty.
Well, what isn't dainty here is agility. He's moving in, dashing in rather quickly, taking down 2, and Renegade's already going to be hard-pressed to defend this. You have 3 people backing out, waiting for respawns, maybe a chance to come back in, but this is not very great here for Renegades. Jesus, of course, has been pulling Miracle Pulse Bombs left, right, and center, but this would be asking a lot for how much Renegades has been thrown off this point.
They're coming back in. Agilities will find Sherlocky in the backline and separate him off. Not able to get that support that they need from the Ana. A couple had gone in. Now trying to think better of it, trying to get out. Agilities has been everything they needed him to be today. He has shown up huge.
He's shown up very big, and now with the extra bit of cleanup on the point, Jesus is gone. There will be no crazy pulse bomb. It's going to be a very quick take by Immortals, and they have 5 full minutes here to take point B. They know that the worst case scenario now is a draw. You can't be in a better position. Let's see if Grim is able to crack this wide open. Holding on to that pulse bomb. Dodges the hook very early on here from Jesus. And I don't know about putting Jesus on the Roadhog here either. With how good he's been on Tracer, I don't like the swap.
It's not necessarily his favorite hero either, but Agilities will come in with the Nano Blade. The Graviton will grab two, but no cleanup there. Juvenile does take down Ethan. That is a big support out of this fight. Now, Agilities only grabbed one with the Dragon Blade. That was Jur down, looking for these dash resets. Now 4 kills for Immortals.
A nice sleep dart deflect there as Immortals coming in very strong. There's a self-destruct for good measure. That's going to clear up the entire point as Renegades now already down 1 tick, down 2 ticks. Immortals moving forward, pushing them off the point. Next wave of stall is going to be coming in here, but they have paid it dearly here so far. They need to get a few more pickoffs to actually push them off the point. Taking down Agilities is a good start. It's a very good start, but Grim Reality is still in and around with a pulse bomb up. But now with Nomi going down, this is actually starting to get pretty bad here for Immortals. Maybe they pull it back with some craziness, but more likely that Renegades is able to throw them off here and complete. But when you're this close, you still want to throw everything in on it.
They're staying in. They want the progress that they've already gotten towards this third and final tick to maintain. That's why you saw D.Va on the point there. Grim still in here, takes down Juvenile. That's a nice kill. If they can get reinforcements, and they're going to be going in 6v5. D-Mech, though, right away. Jesus takes down the other side of things. Grab does not grab all that much initially, but there's the cleanup. This should be a hold for Renegades.
Renegades is going to be able to throw this back, but they paid such a dear price. You really do want those extra ticks there as insurance. Now Immortals, all they have to do is they don't even have to win the fight fully, just win the fight enough, throw people off with the Primal Rage, and they will win the map. And you look at the time that's remaining here, it's about 3 minutes remaining. That's plenty of time to get 1 tick.
You mentioned Primal Rage. That's how they got their first couple ticks. Really nice from Nomi just to knock people away from the point, making sure that their progress was counted and tallied up correctly. Grim does have his Pulse Bomb available here. Agility is so close to another Blade. I imagine they're going to wait for it. Maybe Nano Blade again.
Maybe Nano Blade. Maybe Grim can open it up here with a Pulse Bomb. And I'm going to note, by the way, Jesus is back on the Tracer, so he got off the Roadhog. I think that's a smart move for bringing it back. Agility, so Dragon Blade taking down one early on into the back line, still slicing, forces them back into their spawn. And here's the problem. The D.Va self-destruct, they had to eat it. They couldn't get off the point. They would have lost. That was a catch-22 if there ever was one. And as a result, Immortals on the verge of taking Temple of Anubis here, only needing a little bit more. It is panic time here for the Renegades. Every kill going the way of Immortals. And this could be over here in just a final moment. Defensive Graviton comes in, sets up the Pulse Bomb, and Jesus, in fact, off of that, now there's a chance that Renegades pulls this back. It was small, but they get the final 2 pickoffs that they need, and they're gonna push it back, and wow.
So close, but so far away is Immortals. Still only 2 of the 3 necessary ticks cashed in. 2 minutes left on the clock. I feel like every time we're setting up for a fight, Grim's gonna have his ultimate. Agility's 65%-ish, but maybe we'll have it during the next fight.
And the thing about Grim here is that how many times can you expect him not to get a early pickoff? Because he's been having a little bit of trouble with it, but if he takes down 1 or 2 early on, it's big, and right there, he just goes for the easy pick on the Juvenile. Here comes the Sound Barrier, big advantage, 3 unanswered kills and 3 very quick kills for Immortals. So this is the push they need. Remember, they only need 1 tick here. They've taken down most of Renegades. Renegades has had some decent stall, but this might be mission impossible. It's going up here. Juvenile back into the fight, fighting against everyone, thrown off the point with authority. Mangachu and others coming back in, but this is very difficult indeed. And here's the self-destruct. It's pushing people off. Not there yet. Very close, but this is the delay for Renegade's life.
Delay still coming out. Agility's trying to clean up the D.Va, who has D-Mech. They are so close to this third tick. Sound Barrier comes out, though. Sherlocki, of all people, does out Genji. Agility's 4 kills. Renegades will hold again, barring a miracle from the side of Immortals.
How? How in the world? That was 3 of the cleanest kills you will ever see. And yet, because they don't take out Juvenile when he comes back on the point in time, he buys just enough time to get the stall delay. That is incredibly rough here for Immortals. Now much more likely looking at a draw. We'll see if they can find a way through on their last attack, but now they have to go through Dragon Blade and Primal Rage, so it's gonna have to be even more perfect for Immortals to even have a chance of breaking this tie.
Well, Grim has switched over to Reaper in a desperation for the last push. Does get some damage on there, but Juvenile in his retreat able to take out Nomi with the leap. Now already down 5v6, trying to take this last point. This is it.
This is the final fight here, but Renegade's already in a much better position. They even have the defensive Graviton up. 4 kills, and Immortals out of gas here at the very end. And I got to say that normally I'll look at that and go, it's back and forth, could have gone either way. I am somewhat shocked that Immortals did not get that final point, and it wasn't because they were playing badly. That was just, I guess it was good stall by Renegades, but the fact that they couldn't even get one tick after getting 3 quick kills, that's something.
Tough stuff indeed, and really the problem for me is I still don't know who's better on this map. After 2 days, all sorts of stages, we have a tie 2 days in a row. Jesus on the Tracer has been a very consistent damage dealer for this team. Did a lot of good work, not enough to secure a victory on the map, but enough to stave off defeat at the very least. She's been playing really well.
He has indeed. And you saw there when Immortals was doing the best, part of that was, and it's hard to say if they were shutting down Jesus or if Jesus just wasn't contributing as much. Eichenwald maybe seeing that a little bit more, but we may not really have an idea of who's better at the map at large. But based on the delays that we saw last night and the delays that we saw today, could you make a conjecture as to who's better at these epic delays?
Well, overall, I would say, you're asking a delay question, but I want to answer the overall question here, in that I think that from what we saw today, Immortals was definitely the better team on Anubis. They had far more quality attempts on point B, and they were just off by a sliver, off by a little bit of stall. And the stall, I don't even think was necessarily this well-coordinated effort coming in from the side of Renegades. It really was just throw them back onto that point. I mean, they were wiped out for everyone aside from Juvenile that just managed to respawn in time. And it would have been a pick-off or a final cap there if not for another 2 seconds as more people came in. So it wasn't like this was some really planned stall, just he got back on in time.
Yeah, and they got the kills that they needed. And actually, Jesus was one of the people that made that happen with a nice pulse bomb there to turn things around, at least one of those fights. I want to bring up one other thing before we go into our next map, and that is we saw on the first point attack for Renegades, of course, they brought Pharah and Genji, Mangachu on that one, and they had an option for who Jesus was going to play. They were hovering Widow anyway, and then they ended up playing Tracer, and I just wanted to ask, what is the difference in how you play that, and what does Widow offer, and what does Tracer offer in combination with those other damage dealers?
Well, Widow offers that initial pick-off potential, and you're always going to redefine the battlefield the moment a Widow is on the field. You can't be dancing into sight lines. It really forces the defense or the opposing team, regardless of which side they're on, to play in certain situations. I think at this point, you're playing beyond the meta, which is a good sign for Immortals. Jesus is just, or rather, Jesus is playing so well for Renegades on Tracer that he should just be playing Tracer. He's been the most consistent part of that team. Even going back to yesterday, Mangachu has had moments, but it's not the consistent damage output that Jesus has been able to provide.
I tend to agree, and man, when it comes to the Widow, I think the thing that's important to note is that for Widow, you are putting out this effectively invisible field of pressure, where it is very much constricting your movement in a way that very few heroes put on. So when you have a Widow in the front, what that means is that you're constricting the movement of the other team because they don't want to enter sight lines, which means that you're giving more options for the rest of your team to move around and decide how they want to engage, because so long as the Widow is up, if you go out into a point openly, which a lot of teams will in other cases, you're opening yourself up to get one shot or at least damage enough that other heroes can immediately take you out.
She's essentially a map editor. I mean, her ultimate is wall hacks, and then she's able to just completely cut a battlefield in half.
Well, and actually in that case, I really like what we saw as far as picking Tracer instead, because Grim Reality, he didn't want to be in sight lines. He was not in the open, and as they weren't playing the 76 the same way we've been seeing it, trying to take that high ground, they were just in the side room there trying to keep Grim Reality safe. So it did make sense to at least have the ability to get in there, apply some more frontline pressure, get some pulse bombs going, and I think that definitely worked out for Renegades. It was not able to get them the map win, however, as we do see another draw. The dream is dead on Temple of Anubis, but that does mean that we move on to our next map. The series is still 1-0 in favor of Immortals, and the next map is going to be Nepal. This one once again selected by Renegades. Any expectations on Nepal? I know that they've got some stuff they bring out here.
I think it's a good choice because Immortals has shown up strongest on Oasis. They gave them a fight till round 5 on Oasis yesterday. Nepal is a map that there are certain stages where you can run a Mei, you can run a Bastion, and those are Mangachu's specialties.
Well, you're also forgetting, if we're going to Nepal, how dare you? Hex, Junkrat, who
I'm
is
so surprised.
I don't want to get my hopes up. I don't want to get my hopes up and get him dashed. But yes, on Sanctum, Mangachu will run Junkrat sometimes. I don't want to make promises that Mangachu
Yeah, because I
might
think
not
last
keep.
time we didn't see Junkrat, maybe.
No.
I
but
think
we have seen him on almost every time they've been on a ball.
Generally speaking, he'll run at least once. There's been times where he'll run Junkrat and Sanctum, and then if you get a second Sanctum, he won't run it because he figures the other team has dealt with it enough. But this is a control map where Mangachu has plenty of pocket picks, perhaps much more so than the other control maps in the pool.
Well, speaking of pocket picks and speaking of Mangachu, those of you who watched any Overwatch at all can see where I'm going with this one, even without the overlay. Mangachu will be on Pharah, our first stage here. It's been a stage with mixed success on Pharah for Mangachu, as sometimes he goes a little too far, takes himself out of the fight, but that micro battle will continue as Grim Reality has queued up one of the hardest single hero counters to Pharah in McCree.
Well, the interesting thing, you say single hero, but when Pharah is protected by Mercy, you definitely need more than the McCree in the equation. It's not just, oh, you run a McCree, you take her out of the air. It's like, no, you actually do need extra support on the McCree to win that back and forth. But I think the key here is that we saw Athan more willing to use DPS on the Ana to take Mangachu out of the sky. If Grim and Athan combine on that really well, they can ruin his day. But this fight taking place very fast, no subtlety at all, no high ground war, in fact. But with Agility's taking down Juvenile immediately, Immortals are going to get themselves set up for a nice 6v5, and now Jer's down. So Renegades dive in over the top, not quite what they were looking for.
Getting bullied into the corner, Mangachu laying all sorts of damage, does finally hit the rocket onto Agilities, but there goes his pocket healer, Sherlocky down, Jesus down, and Mangachu quickly follows. Immortals in a very aggressive first push here, able to take control of the point.
And this is actually very problematic for Renegades because this is one of those points where if you're trying to come back in as a Pharah, Grim Reality now has the high ground in the middle. A lot of good vantage points for dealing with you. Same with the Ana. So Mangachu has to be very tentative about how he comes in here, which is not the same when you're holding defensively. But we do have the D.Va in play here for Renegades. He's going to clean things up a little bit as Grim under all sorts of pressure. Jesus in the back. Pulse Bomb connects. But there it is. Grim Reality on the double team finally goes down to Mangachu. Picks up 3 with that barrage, making it rather spicy in the very end. And they know who the threat was in Grim. They isolated him with multiple players, and as a result, they're able to quickly take this point.
Spicy indeed. 2% tick on to the board as Jesus with the cleanup will take out Hyped, who was the last remaining member of Immortals alive. Very nice push. Mangachu yesterday, I praised him for hitting those intermediate mid-air rockets of 4 feet away in the air. It becomes so important to take down Lucio's, things like that. He hit those towards the end there. Hook now on cooldown. Everyone bullied back into the room. Still no perfect answer for Mangachu. A nice concussion is going to cause chaos down there as he hunts down Soldier.
Oh, Grim now on the 76 trying to flank in, and Grim off in the middle of nowhere, not necessarily getting rewarded, but he does pull things back enough that the rest of Immortals can get on the point, so it still might work out for them here as the explosion from Agilities, or Hyped, able to find Jesus pretty early on here. But the resurrection is in. Ico coming back into this fight, has the Dragon Blade, but doesn't have the help to use it, and just gets bopped by Athan towards the very end. It is worth noting here that Immortals was able to get on the point and retake it during all this, so Renegades definitely perhaps getting a little bit debated by Grim Reality in the back to start that off.
They did deep dive him. I suppose if you're Grim and you know that the focus is going to be on you 200% of the time, you might as well use it to your advantage and pull them off your team. Really opened up some space for his team to get in there. Grim Reality with a late melee kill onto there. Mangachu going to try to be getting back in here. Has been damage boosted the entire time. Getting close to it though, as 75% now on the board for Immortals.
Mangachu now coming over the top, does have another barrage as mentioned. Looking for Athan. Oh, beautiful. 2 rockets, down he goes. And now this is going to give him a lot more room as he goes in for his other potential counter. And wow, he had no health left and still uses the barrage. When you really want someone dead, Hex.
Oh, that's barrage things. You use it, you get 1. If you live through it, you count that a victory. Nomi is going to come in, swing the hammer. Jesus goes down as it gets very scrappy on the point. Mangachu getting damage boosted. Blade is out just to intimidate, it seems.
You know, clearly for Immortals, they want to take down Renegades here and neutralize Mangachu. You'd run another Pharah here and just run away. That is the old school Nicholas strategy that did cause Renegades to lose around here versus Complexity.
The Complexity Nicholas strategy, a thing for sure. One of the more interesting lives Mangachu has had on this point, this stage in particular. But right now, last fight needed for Immortals will be coming in. Grim's gonna have Tactical Visor, Agility's there too. They start off taking Mangachu out, that is huge.
Mangachu's already out of this fight, and now Grim, very confident just using Attack Visor here in the back line. Nothing to stop him from ripping through the remainder of this Renegades team. And now 99%, they have to res. They have to stay on the point. It's an overtime. No more chances here if they're not able to get through. Agility's out of this fight, so they do have the 6v5 setup. Look at how much pressure Grim is on, but doesn't care, just able to outfight Ico, because Ico wasn't able to take that one-on-one. Gonna go very much in the way of Immortals here. I think even if he won that one-on-one, it still would have been pretty dicey, but it is the difference between Immortals slightly winning and massively winning 100% to 0.
That's what we talk about. We talk about Grim on 76 being a little bit more effective than Mangachu 76. Just those solo engagements, the small skirmishes that happen all the time, having to win those one-on-ones, protecting yourself, things along those lines. Grim 76, a big part in why they won that stage. We will be moving, I believe this is Sanctum. No, it's not. All right, so I was worried that we're not going to see Junkrat on Sanctum. There is still hope. Mangachu, of course, will stay on that Pharah. Ico is going to switch off of the Genji, and why not? It has not done a whole lot for them. He's going to be on Zarya instead. That should, in turn, help Juvenile be a little more aggressive. That's when he's been at his best, too. So some switch-ups here for Renegades.
I really do like Mangachu coming in here on the Roadhog. Of course, this is a map where Pharah can work, but Immortals has been dealing with the Pharah reasonably well with Grim and support. So this time around, I think he just wants to use the closer quarters of the Shrine to make Roadhog work, get as many hook-offs as possible.
Well, tank heavy on both sides here. Triple tank on each of these compositions. Agility takes out Juvenile. Nomi also goes down, so a tough day to be a Reinhardt. That is the flip over, though, as Ico is the one down now, and Immortals takes the man advantage onto the point.
And this is where Grim is going to get all the clip he wants. Does take a little bit of nap just because Jer lands that sleep dart, but by Jer, I mean Sherlock.
They sound similar. I get them confused all the time. They look similar on paper as well. Hyped, though, takes down Juvenile. This Immortals team looks invigorated, a little bit different from yesterday, playing aggressive. Again, one of the new tools that they've put in their playbook to be more aggressive as a team as a whole. Juvenile will charge in, gets the boost, hits the charge, but no one down so far.
Well, it's interesting how far up Immortals is playing this. They might get punished. Grim Reality go take a trip to Terra Firma off of that Earthshower, and yet Agility's keeping Immortals in this. Hooks compensating even when Grim is down early in the fight. That's a lot of damage coming out there for a Roadhog in the middle, and Lucio coming to head back to try and sneak cap, but that is certainly not going to work.
And that's not even really adopting anyone else's style. No one holds up here. No one plays this far forward. This is brand new from Immortals, working out so far. Agilities finally goes down, so that is one of their big damages up front, but Nomi picking up the mantle, takes down 3. I can't recall the last time I've seen a team hold this far forward on this stage.
It doesn't happen that teams hold this far forward. I think it's just teams adapting this idea where you saw it a lot from teams like Selfless, where they get as far aggressive as possible. It means that teams are more willing now to experiment with just how far can they push the envelope. But next fight underway, and for Renegades, so we have 2 more chances to take this back as Grim and Agility's combined. Early pickoff on the Mangachu, and again, they're just going to be aggressive in pushing this back. You do have to be careful, though, about the graviton that Ico is holding if they get too far in, but no, instead Ico got to go for a long ride and an intimate encounter with a brick wall.
Nomi has been very aggressive here up front, and it shows up as he's getting kill after kill. They are hanging right outside of the dropship spawn, looking for hooks, are gonna finally have to back up, but this is going to be the last engagement if Immortals can continue to do what they're doing. Already at 95%, Renegades has to find an option. They will rotate around, find a different avenue to get to the point.
What comes on the Ico? Ico needs to land a good graviton right here, right now, and it does pull in 3. Big Bang combo coming in. No, it hits the Reinhardt shield. Does not do at all what they're looking for. A rare pulse bomb whiff, in a sense, coming in from Jesus. It's a nice Reinhardt block, but damage still might have been done here as Renegades is coming out the side. They pick down 2, and Grim trying to bring this back, but I think if you're Renegades here, you just back out. You don't need to go for the miracle return. You can have 5 fights to find a way of bringing this back.
99%. Renegades had to throw some ults into it, but Immortals had been using their ultimates outside of the enemy spawn. So not a whole lot for them to work with either. Grim will be the closest one to it, getting a tactical visor here in about 10%. The initiation is going to be crucial here, but do you think Immortals maybe just goes for a junk rush? They have a lot of time.
They very well could go for a junk rush. They're not under any time pressure at all. They can really manipulate the ultimate economy here. And of course, starting in this fight where Jesus is able to take down Hype pretty early on, it's probably going to force their hand into more of a junk rush. But you got to believe that when Grim uses that tech visor, it will probably be coming with a nano boost. And for them, as many ultimates they can throw behind it.
Well, Grim is now joining his team as they did evacuate a few. Gets out of there, gets hooked though, as Mangachu will stop this push before it even starts.
And for Renegades, they're not holding quite as far up, but they do need to be a little bit more aggressive. Try and get these initiations before Immortals comes in, because Immortals does only need one good push. And I think the next one might be it. Ethan very close now to having his nano boost, and self-destruct, nano boost, tac visor. Gonna be pretty rough here for Renegades to deal with. Here we go, next fight underway. Mangachu forcing the issue with a nano whole hog diving in, but in the backline, the self-destruct connects, takes down Jer. And we see Jesus already out of the fight as Grim pops attack visor, gonna take down 2. And unfortunately for Renegades, the initiation from them not quite doing enough. Immortals able to turn the tables with some well-placed ultimates, and they take the round, 1 round away from going up 2-0 here in this series.
Mangachu starting that fight, got the nano boost onto Whole Hog, able to isolate the Reinhardt, but a nice reaction from the rest of Immortals as they simply rotated around, said, Rein, it was nice knowing you. We'll see you later. We have a fight to go in. Then Mangachu found himself a little out of position. Nice mechanics from the Immortals to get the first couple kills in that fight. Puts them in the position they are in now, 2-0 on the map, looking to go 2-0 in the series.
This has in many ways felt like a different Immortals team, and it hasn't been anything big per se, but just smaller things where we've been seeing Grim make smarter decisions, getting even more done than he did yesterday. We've been seeing Agilities be a little bit more accurate in terms of getting first pickoffs, and these tiny little things can very much shift the entire outcomes of fights. And Hex, just tip the hat, RIP, no Junkrat coming out here this time.
I see it. Don't have to remind me. Mangachu on the other side of the gang. It's going to play Roadhog instead. I guess that's okay. Fight on the stairs, as always is the case in Sanctum. Juvenile goes in, gets a bubble. Already was very low. Mangachu able to clean it up, but Juvenile and Jesus will fall in turn.
Grimmality right there with the counterplay coming in. A little bit off the flank perhaps, but finding Jesus early on. And now Joldy's piling on, finding Mangachu with that hook in. This is a rough place to be. There is really no retreat here unless you have mobility skills, and neither Hana nor Zarya going to be able to find an easy way off that ledge.
No escape from the sky cells of the Eerie there. Only one way out. Now holding very far forward. This is where teams generally hold on this point, so nothing groundbreaking like they showed us last time holding as far forward. But it's nice to see these teams who haven't traditionally been aggressive be a little more aggressive. Definitely have been working out for Immortals as they adjust to this new style of play.
You note here for Joldies, he's not even trying to win the shield war as much as he is being concerned with flankers. He's looking for that early edge on the team, even though it could lead to bigger distance. And look, he's able to get the early hook here, takes down Juvenile, ends up with 2 very quick kills. And when you lose your Roadhog and Reinhardt that quickly, that's the end of your push. You're not going to be able to have enough meat on the ground to actually deal with that.
You need the front line to take the damage, to tank the damage, as it were. Losing both of them means the end of that push. Immortals nearing 50% already. The ult economy has been impressive from them. Only had used very little here. Going to have nearly everything during this next fight.
Immortals, they're gonna open this up with the Graviton, and there it is. The Graviton comes in, pulls in 3. Whole Hog just gonna be very casual, fall through, and the world's least eventful team wipe, just well executed.
There's the horn. That is some kills there. And again, the economy pretty good there. Had to use a couple. Let's see it again.
Again, this time from a Joldy's point of view, as you get a first row invite to the Carnage. And with the Earthshare there, we see Immortals able to come right back, taking down 5 immediately. These engages from Renegades have not been good, and Hex, they have one more attempt to get it right and attempt to reverse sweep here on the ball.
We don't often have the chance to praise them, but Verbo with the sound barrier keeping his team wholly alive there as we got the camera back onto a fallen Grim with little health. Verbo with the nice sound barrier. Everyone chipping in here. Last attempt for Renegades to bring this back. They have Grav, they have Whole Hog, need to use them here.
Here comes the Graviton in from Ico. Is it going to be enough for fall through? And it is. Mangachu giving them a taste of their own medicine with his Whole Hog. It tastes their own management. That can be either good or bad depending on where we're going. But Immortals able to hold on there because even as they killed 3, they weren't able to get people onto the point and delay. And unfortunately for Renegades, that's going to put them down 2 maps in the series.
And it's been a whole different Immortals team. Nomi has been playing aggressively. You see him here swinging the hammer. That is a full cleanup. They won each of these fights decisively. That is about as decisive as I've ever seen Sanctum won.
Yeah, no. The question I had was, what happened to Renegades? And what happened to Immortals? Because it doesn't even seem like it's one or the other. It seems like it has to be a little bit of both in this case with how different it is from last night.
You don't have a shift of the degree we're seeing right now without both teams being involved to some degree. And I would say this is that I do feel like what we're seeing from the side of Renegades is that they aren't running Pharah as much. And when they're not running Pharah, they're really getting very little done. And even when they are running Pharah, which is probably why they're not running as much, what you're seeing here coming out from the side of Immortals is that they are running more things that deal with Pharah effectively. They're having better prioritization. So Mangachu's effectiveness on the Pharah has been a bit limited, but then when you're forcing him to everything else, it's making it pretty rough as well. But let's not just focus on one thing. That is clearly a key part, but Hex, you've of course looking at that. What else do you want to bring up here in terms of tank and support play?
Well, I think it's all the plays overall. I just want to look at the style here. Is when Immortals is playing aggressive, it takes away what Renegades likes to do. They like to be aggressive. They're forcing them to react, and they seem to be uncomfortable doing so. Immortals was generally a team that played standard. We looked at them as a vanilla team. They run 2-2-2. They play very standard. They don't mix up compositions. Now they're playing more aggressive, and they're taking the fight to Renegades rather than being reactive, and that makes Renegades uncomfortable. They can't play their own style. Immortals has stolen the Renegade style, if you will, and they're using it against them.
And they did it in one night. And it was a late night into today already. And I'm going to get a little bit away from the tangibles. Let's get a little ethereal here because I think coming into this, even this event, if I had to choose teams to define as being momentum driven, these teams might have been the 2 that I would have picked. Do you think that Immortals being able to win in that first map versus last night playing King's Row and going down and then going into a tumultuous, very long assault map where it was a draw, do you think that has anything to do with this? Do you think Immortals' aggression is coming out of just their energy being boosted, or is it something that they fixed overnight?
I think it's just there is day-to-day variance. I really don't think that there's too much momentum here because, I mean, really, you look at Renegades have just had troubles on Eichenwald, period. I don't think they're going to go full tilt because they lose on Eichenwald. Neither of these teams, I mean, Renegades has more of a reputation for fading late into a series, but I don't think they really have a reputation for tilting a la some of the other teams that we've seen in Overwatch. You could probably make that argument more for old school FaZe. I really don't think that them getting the first map has caused it. I think it's just the first map was a bit of a temperature gauge for where the series is going to go, and Immortals just playing better across the board, and certainly Renegades struggling on most fronts right now, except for Jesus. Jesus has been a very high point this entire time here for Renegades. It's just he hasn't been getting as much help as he needs.
Yeah, and looking at Mangachu then on the other side of things, we saw a lot more of him last night, and today we've seen him swapping quite a bit. Is this a sign that he's just not finding anything that he's able to be comfortable on right now? I mean, I think he's played Diva even coming into these, and I actually liked the fact that they were putting him on a tank. That shows me that they realize that Jesus is the one carrying. If we're going to play 3 tanks, let's let Jesus shine. But do you think that's a sign that maybe Mangachu's having an off day today?
He doesn't look like he looked yesterday. His Pharah has been the brief moments where you saw him hit some of these mid-rockets, but when he's rotating off of that, he's not getting that much work done. And yeah, Jesus has been doing his job, but no one else has. You could go across the board on the other 5 here. Aiko has been, I don't even know if he's in game. He's been disappearing. Not a lot of work going on there. He's not being able to help out Juvenile, who's been dying early in some of these fights too. So I think across the board, the dominoes are falling for this team.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Juvenile because I was going to touch on this a little bit as well, in that we gave Juvenile a lot of props yesterday. Because in the beginning, we went in and said, look, he's had issues. Sometimes he dies too early. Yesterday, when you took a look at him, it was very different. He had a much better game, much more disciplined. Aiko was right there with the support. It was far better. Today, it feels like more of a reversion to the mean, where whether it be his support in the back or him just over-engaging, whichever it may be. I mean, there's many explanations for why he's dying early. However, he is dying early in a lot of these fights. The engaging coordination from Renegades is not there, and it's letting Immortals do more with less.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, we do have the next map. It's going to be Dorado. And by the way, it's definitely the opposite of what we saw yesterday. Immortals are up 2-0 in the series, and this is actually a map that they've looked very strong on in the past, but they've been actually going away from it a little bit in this event specifically. Are we going to see Immortals thrive like they have in the past, or is Gibraltar where they've been trying to live?
Well, Gibraltar's obviously been very good for them, but I think Dorado is still a map they're extremely comfortable on. I really want to see what Hyped wants to play here. When they were best at Gibraltar, it was when Hyped was playing off-tank classes and things like that, particularly on second point if they get there. We'll see how they want to deal with that high ground. I think Immortals, you just have to look at it day to day. They're playing better. I mean, I know that's not deep diving analysis, but mechanically, individually, across the board, they're simply playing better than the Renegades are, and yesterday it was a different case.
Couldn't agree more. And Immortals, this is a thing where even though Renegades is bringing Immortals to Dorado, this is always a map that Immortals, at least historically, it's been a little bit rockier for them into the OCS, but you would think that they're still pretty much okay with coming here despite some recent issues. And the reason why we've been seeing them more on Gibraltar is that they've clearly put more of an effort into scrimming the beginning of Gibraltar and trying to perfect the early dive defense. But I would expect Immortals to certainly come in here relatively competent, although this offense that they're showing here, Hex, is a little bit interesting. It feels like they're going much more ground and pound than we might expect.
The interesting thing being that Grim is on the Roadhog. Of course, that means they only want to run one DPS. Agilities is their Genji player. He's played phenomenally today. Of course, we mentioned him in the pregame of let's see a little more out of his Genji. It seems like we will get our wish, but this is somewhat standard for Dorado first if you just want to go. You either go very dive heavy, something like LG Loyal does a lot of the time, or you go meet on the ground, get through the archway kind of slow push, which seems to be what they're going to go with. Defensively, Mangachu on the 76. We've had our questions about that. We'll see what he can get done.
And for Renegades, this is where a big statement here would be to come out and get a first point hold here in Dorado. We've definitely been seeing more of that, but sometimes easier said than done. And Immortals, even though this is more ground and pound, they are getting up here relatively quickly. They're not taking as much time poking in and around, but now that the payload is coming up here, we'll see how they approach this. But you see the early hook attempt coming out here of Grim Reality, not going to land it. And the only reason why we're seeing Grim on the Roadhog here is because Agilities is on the Genji. And that means they prioritize having Genji here over anything else.
Yeah. As Agilities does get a little bit of poke in, but this is traditional Dorado. That is a charge in from Nomi. He gets very low, but gets shielded. Hyped able to take down Jesus on the other side of things. That means the Roadhog is down, a lot more room to operate on the ground. 6v5 in favor of Immortals.
This is an incredible start here for Immortals as Agilities gets them back, gets on the Juvenile early on 6v4, and now Grim out for blood. Deep diving on the other side as Hype dives on his opposite side. 4 kills here for Immortals, and that's just not going at all well for Renegades. And I gotta say, Renegades is getting away from what they do well here. You're putting Jesus on Roadhog when he's had an incredible day on Tracer. You're putting Mangachu back on 76 when that was clearly not working yesterday and clearly not working today. This team composition for Renegades is just bad.
Even on different rosters, Jesus on the Roadhog was never a great sign for whatever team he is on. Not to say he's a terrible Roadhog, it's not his best hero. I think you can get more out of him elsewhere. That was a slow, plodding, methodical push.
Jesus could be a great Roadhog right now, and I would still want him on Tracer with what he's been doing here today, with how consistent he's been on Harass and Pulse Bombs. This composition is not playing the Renegades' strengths at all. For other teams, it would be great. For Renegades right now, it's not good. Here comes Agilities in over the top. Nanoblade now in play, looking for that little bit of pickoff here, and honestly getting very little, not quite the Nanoblade they were looking for here in the least, as you see Immortals still getting payload push here, so it's not necessarily the end of the world, though. They would have liked to have got a few kills off of that.
They've been pushing the entire time. Juvenile will finally take down Athan, one of the few kills so far for Renegades this entire map. A Graviton will come down just to isolate Aiko. Meanwhile, this push has been going on the entire time. They have to come in from the deck. Juvenile charges and stumbles face first into the ground. That is a second push very easily taken as Grim lights it up.
Renegades, please play to your strengths. Please change this immediately. This is embarrassing now. They're playing their weakest heroes right now, and Immortals is punishing them with more authority than we've ever seen. This is almost world record time on Dorado. And yes, Immortals is playing well with Agility still able to get to that backline. Grim is adequate here on the Roadhog, but it really comes down to Renegades just not executing here at all. Mangachu, though, does have the Tac Visor, and we know he can get good value off the Tac Visor and where he looks for this, so maybe we get a stop here in a moment, but this is a stop that they've paid for with way too much blood. There's the Graviton coming in. They even Sound Bearer on top of it. So many ultimates used here just to clear that out.
Sunbury did go off on the other side, so that is the trade that they're looking for. Dragonblade did come out from agility. He's able to get Sherlocky, but that is it. Finally, the defense stabilized by everyone mashing Q and praying. Dorado last, very difficult to finish out so far, as you mentioned, a world record-setting time as it appears. But right now, cleaning up the remnants of the Immortals push. Immortals staggering in here.
Immortals is getting sloppy. Now, I think they were a little bit too hyped up over how quickly they went in here. Yeah. Now they need a backup, regroup, decide if this is the composition they really want here for last or not. Might actually like seeing Grim swap here to Soldier, but here comes Mangachu going in for the flanking tack visor. In over the top. He's able to take down Athan immediately. This should be successful overall, and it is. He takes down 2, soon to get 3. And it's really hard to deal with a flanking tack visor from that positioning, but I would like to see Grim now go to a 76 or just something other than Hog. I mean, you can make Hog work there on offense, but I'd kind of like to see him on a comfort pick.
Well, you asked them to play to their strengths, and that's what they're doing now, being aggressive on the defense, holding further forward, making sure that they will get 2 fights in rather than 1. Very forward position for Mangachu as he's getting the support that he needs from his team. Gonna get some poke. Now might be the time to back out as the numbers start to switch into Immortals' favor. But this is definitely more Renegade style than we saw. I guess there's no style called being rolled over on the first 2 points of Dorado, but...
Well, here comes Graviton coming in from Immortals. 3 people gonna get hooked in, and this is huge! Grim Reality taking down 4. The setup is big. Make it 5. Even gets the final hook on the Jer. That's the team wipe porn, and Renegades just got caught with their pants down. Now we'll see if they can actually bring this back, but Immortals in a very good position here to get a few pickoffs as Renegades tries to get back in. Here comes Agilities. Nano Blade going to be the finisher perhaps. Gets the backline, has 1, gets 2, and just deflects right into Mangachu. Beauty coming out here from Agilities. Though, still some defenders left on the point. Namely, we have Aiko, we have Jur, and they're doing a decent enough job to delay that we might have respawned to him, but Grim, bit of cleanup coming out here. It is just Lucio on the cart. Oh. Look at that! Yes! Reinhardt removal service.
Well, it was probably getting down to it anyway, but with some pizzazz at the end, removing the one person stalling out the cart with a counter charge. I always find those very amusing. Reinhardt, funny character, funny guy. Amuses me at the end anyway as they push him off. A little bit of a resurgence on the defense to make sure that it is not the fastest time on Dorado we have ever seen, but still very good to be able to complete. 2:36 left in their bank. The road to victory is very easy for Immortals. Do not let Renegades finish Dorado. And we have a disconnect.
We might have a disconnect here for Renegades. Well, we are pausing. Someone reconnecting. Yeah, they're just restarting real quick. So looks like Jared was getting a little bit of lag during that. That does happen when you have your computer on for a little bit too long.
Probably just jamming the tunes as he plays Lucio most of the time. And, you know, there's the speakers maybe rattled off the desk.
I'm going to really date myself, but LimeWire's going in the background. You know, like, wow, who's downloading music? No, but let's talk about Immortals real quick. I want to talk about something we saw there at the end a little bit with the, you know, the cheeky "get off my cart, please" play. But something that I've seen out of Immortals multiple times today is they have been really focusing on cart control. I mean, you'll see even like on Eichenwald on second, they'll be fighting nearby, and then it seems like they just know when to peel somebody off to go to get the cart. Okay, we've won the fight. Let's get Lucio on the cart. And they did it really well there at the end as well because, you know, you can win fights, and that's going to help you get that cart moved. But you know, you also then have a little bit of a respawn time, and if you can take advantage of every second, they really utilized it.
It definitely helps, and it was a pretty stylistic finish nonetheless. But what really comes out to me, and we'll go over this again at the end of the map, win or lose, but I don't understand why we're seeing Renegades go away from what they're good at. And it's kind of mind-blowing to me. You have Jesus playing so well on Tracer, a bright spot throughout the entire series, huge pulse bombs repeatedly, lots of pressure opening up opportunities, and you go, we're going to put that Tracer, we're going to put him on Roadhog. Let's do that. And then you look at Mangachu where you have footage last night, you have footage from previous maps today that his 76 is not performing where it needs to be right now, and he's a very good player at other heroes. Why are you forcing this composition that you clearly are not playing very well when you have other things you can do that are much better in the moment? It's somewhat baffling.
Yeah, I can tell you why. It's just not working in these other maps. I mean, I can only imagine that in the comms they're like, well, I guess let's try something else because what they're good at is not working. But as you mentioned, even earlier in the Nepal, you saw glimpses of what Mangachu can do on Pharah, and we've definitely seen what Jesus can do on Tracer. So I don't think that's the answer, no matter which way you slice it. That is not working. That's working even worse than what else they've got. But we're back into game. Take it away for round 2 of map number 4.
It is odd to try something for trying's sake, to just switch things up for switch up's sake, where usually when things are all falling apart, everyone goes back to their specialists, to their comfort picks, as we've called them. So it does appear that might be what they're rolling onto now. Mangachu has queued up the Pharah for the most part. He's going to have support in Sherlocky, as this attack will very likely be taking to the skies here. Immortals will be on the defense now, and it feels like they can run whatever they want. Agility is back onto the Roadhog.
Well, this would be something if we saw Jesus coming out here in the Genji, where who knows what to expect in that particular instance. I'd much rather see him on the Tracer, and we will be seeing him on the Tracer. So Renegades now at least playing to their strengths. We know that this is a composition that they are very good at and can be very oppressive with, and it's on the offense, which plays to their even more. Do you have the early charge coming out, though, as a Juvenile just getting bullied in. Great charge by Nomi, nice fall through by Agilities. And Immortals, they're dealing with this dive pretty rapidly, but you see Mangachu in the back, does take down one, perhaps opening the door, taking down both supports. So this is going to be a good opportunity for Renegades when respawns come in.
Very good for them to be able to try to equalize that fight. They've been on, Nomi in particular has been on anti-juvenile duty. Every time he jumps in, Nomi's got a charge there waiting for him. So the defense did hold pretty strong first, got a couple of kills. They're holding further forward than they usually do, but that has been Immortals kind of switching styles here. Grim now in the back, a more traditional defense coming in. Juvenile comes in, gets very low yet again. Have to deal with this combo in the sky. Sherlocky very low, finished by Grim Reality. Should put the end of that push.
I think we would be remiss if we didn't mention here how Nomi has also been playing far better tonight. He was, I think when Immortals has been doing badly, I think Nomi was a bit of a weak link, but his charges have been on point here, and he's been a bigger reason as to why Juvenile's been having a rough night as well. So credit where credit is due. Better night here for Nomi, better night for most of Immortals overall, and Renegades, even as a running composition that they're historically more comfortable with, kind of staggering in. We'll see if this next attack is a little bit better for them, as Mangachu will have the barrage up, and they do get that early pick on the hype. So the gates are open here, 6v5, but the Earth Shatter comes down. Spoiler alert, gates are closed. Gates are definitely closed.
I regret everything, as that is a cleanup there. Jarrett will go down. Resurrection will come in. Everyone on the cart trying to bring it back. Juvenile back to left. Mangachu in the back lines. Hits a couple rockets on Ethan. Not the finishing rocket, though. And despite that resurrection, they call for retreat.
Well, I think calling for the immediate retreat isn't bad. I mean, they can still apply pressure, just reorganizing so they don't dive in while everyone's low. But the problem is, Immortals is able to reorganize here, and that barrage, that wasn't a good barrage. It wasn't a flanking barrage. It was a in-your-face barrage versus people that can deal with it, and they're punished in turn. So Renegades just looking lost right now as Immortals dominating. Under 2 minutes left to play here, Hex.
Have to find some sort of answer, and I'm at a loss for an answer on what Renegades does. I play better, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to say. Sherlocky's going to switch over to Ana instead. That might be part of the answer. Mangachu will stay on to the Pharah, but it is that simple sometimes.
This is where you know analysis is broken down. Just like, shoot harder. just please.
Shoot the guy who's shooting the thing. Come on.
But on the same level, Renegades is failing at that, so it might be that simple. Immortals, though, absolutely swarming all over the top right now. Many ultimates up to defend this, and Renegades, they're gonna put their faith in the Sound Bear, trying to dive in, and again, they run into Nomi's hammer. He is slamming the door in Renegade's face with authority. Such a better game here for him so far, but I mean, at least for Renegades, Immortals ran through most of their ult economy there. Although Grim's gonna have Attack Visor up soon, so.
Grim's tracking is amazing, though. A lot of times you watch Soldier 76 and they rely on the Helix rocket as their finishing move to get that final bit of damage. Not Grim, he just says, well, why wouldn't I just headshot them instead? It's just that easy. He has been finishing kills on the 76 at an extremely high rate, so much so, almost with another tactical visor up, as he's had all sorts of room to work with. Juvenile very low, even on the entry as he switches over. Juvenile dead again.
Juvenile down immediately. Nomi with the pressure around, and after that early kill in the Juvenile, you just see Immortals adapt, go in very deep on the Renegades. Nothing Mangachu could do there, just meat for Grim Reality to devour. 10 seconds left, and we'll see if they can touch the car again, but if they do, the tac visor is here. That means they have to get on Grim immediately while getting on the cart, but tac visor is going to come out, going to active zoning early on, and they do touch the cart to force overtime, but they lose 2 in the process. 3. This is going to be it. This is so decisive for Immortals, and Renegades lost power awfully fast here today, Hex.
I just chalk it up to a bad day and move on from there, but this is a completely different result than we saw last night. The antithesis, actually, as it was 3-0 Renegades over Immortals last night, but beyond that, ZP, this was a different 3-0 than we saw last night.
That's exactly what I was going to say, is that there's a 3-0, and then there's a 3-0.
3, oh my God.
Yeah, this was definitely the 3, oh my God, because this is the Immortals we thought we were going to be seeing from the very start of OCS. Renegades, I mean, again, it's a bit of column A, a bit of column B, but clearly Immortals playing far better. That was a strange hook.
Hooks are gonna hook, but Agility's played great. I'm, fine giving it with him right there. You could have handed the play of the match or whatever MVP award you want to any of the members of Immortals. They all were on top of their game today.
Yeah, I mean, we even saw shades of high ground Grim Reality there, as one of the casters on this disc is want to say, don't let Immortals have high ground, but they actually found victory without necessarily prioritizing high ground. Oh, excuse me. I'm choking like Renegades did just there. Oh, man, if I couldn't have planned it to be better than that. No, but talking about the players all performing, we talked about it before the match, how, well, everyone needed to step it up. And I want to talk about Nami versus Juvenile, because Juvenile, we did talk about him playing a lot better last night. Mm-hmm. And yet today, in both Earth Shatters and Staying Alive, a.k.a. Unbinding Charge, Juvenile just struggled and Nami really excelled.
Nomi had a much better game. We brought it up mid-cast, and there's really not much more to say about it. You saw Juvenile go in, and he was getting caught by charges far more often. And for Nomi, who was really getting beaten up a lot in recent games, it was a big tick up. Everything on Immortals here went better. And for the record, by the way, Gil, if you're doing a choking impression of Renegades, you're only going to be able to sell it if you die on the desk, because that is how rough that was here tonight.
Yeah. I think tank play is often a symptom of how a team is playing overall. It's the first and most notable sign if a team is playing well together, which is why we saw Juvenile play better yesterday, because Aiko was with them. He was getting bubbles. They were supporting the aggression. It seemed like everyone was on the same page. The Renegades team I just watched, I would not even want to be in their comms during that, because it would stress me out. I cannot imagine that it was a lovely environment. It seemed like no one was working together. Just based on what we saw, it seemed like Juvenile says, I'm going in, and no one is with them, and he's dying alone all the time. It did not look good at all.
If there was a checklist for things that could go bad for a team in the span of 24 hours, because that's really what it is, and that's why it's really frustrating watching this, because Renegades played far better last night, is that not playing to your strengths, not playing comps that you are particularly great on, everyone almost collectively having a bad game at the same time, just all the things that can tank a team happened directly to the Renegades. And conversely, Immortals was playing far better on their own as well, and it wasn't just Renegades having worse performance. So it was a just combination of efforts from both sides to make this the 3-0 that it was.
After that happens to Renegades, you don't scrim tonight. You call today off. Everyone take 5 hours of their own, reconvene tomorrow, because you're not fixing that problem tonight. I think you can only make it worse right now. You chalk it up as a bad day. You forget about it. You move on. You're still in second place in the tournament.
And just so we're clear, if you take a look back at Anubis, you can almost make the argument that this was a 4-0, because even though Anubis was a draw, Immortals looked far better on Anubis and had far more convincing scoring attempts on the point B. So for me, in my head, this is just about a 4-0. This is really Renegades losing on every map rather decisively. rough night.
It was indeed one-sided. And I want to touch on one final thing before we go to the break, because I'm excited to see what our next matchup has to hold for us. And that is when you're adapting in the moment, as you had touched on, you stick with your strengths. And they did not do that. And I don't want to belittle Jesus's skill on Roadhog, because he definitely can play that really well. But the fact that he has been carrying the team on Tracer both last night and today, and he was actually facing off against Grim Reality's Roadhog. And if you're talking about people not playing in their role, Grim Reality played so much better. And RNG, I think actually I like their adaptation at the end there to switch off of the Mercy, because at least you still have a strong Ana player. Maybe you're playing fair in a little bit of a different way. Those are the adaptations I want to see.
Well, we brought it up before, and it's probably worth bringing up again in the final wrap-up here before we go to break. But I would say that Jesus was the one player who did cover himself in glory tonight. And my main complaint with him going the Roadhog is that his Tracer was so phenomenally good, so much so in keeping Renegades in it more so than they probably should have been on maps, that when he's playing that hot on Tracer, and we know Tracer can be played viably on just about every map, you can take a look at how Rogue did it in the last OMM, there's really no reason to pull him off Tracer. Even if you think Roadhog is theoretically better, that Tracer was far too hot to switch.
I will always associate Jesus on Roadhog with a team that is struggling. It goes back to the days on Kingdom, where there was a day where Connor J couldn't show up. He was the Roadhog player who they'd been dominating with. They had to move Jesus over to it. Jesus wasn't thrilled about the switch, and they struggled ever since then. And I think you see it there. When they're really desperate for answers is when you put Jesus on Roadhog. So it's a sign that things have already gone bad, and you're not going to be able to flip that around. I don't quite understand it, but that's how I will always associate. Jesus on Roadhog equals bad.
Well, I really need to see this Renegade squad under pressure, because, I mean, maybe this is the equation. We asked, well, are they bad in these late matches? Or maybe it's that when they're starting to feel the pressure come on, they just don't know how to deal with it. And yeah, I mean, I guess we'll have to see, as they are going to be playing a couple more matches left in the Overwatch Carbon series. But let's take a look real quick. We're going to be looking at Complexity versus LG Loyal next. But after this one, Immortals picking up victory. LG Loyal and Liquid, they got to feel pretty bad about that, because their playoff hopes there was one nail in the coffin for Immortals finding victory there. And honestly, Complexity, they're going to be looking for victory here in this next one to put one of the final nails in that coffin to solidify their spot, as well as they want to tie up Immortals 4-4 in the Overwatch Carbon series. But before all of that, we're going to let you guys grab some snacks, get all your bio break needs taken care of. We'll be back in just a few minutes for more Overwatch Carbon series.
Has one, gets two, and this is a very effective Dragon Blade here so far. I'm going to end up with 3 before it's all said and done, so though they're down Nomi, it's very effective.
Wonder, the combo's still poking around, and their Jesus comes in, hits a huge pulse bomb, takes out 2 tanks.
And there's the barrage coming in on the top, because Jesus, they were stuck there with about 4 people left, 2 people on the Graviton, and there it is. The Graviton comes in, pulls in 3. Oh, I'm just going to be very casual fall through.